Covered in farm.
Oh, is it? It's up in Gloversville on Tuesday. Gorgeous up there, but just farm after farm.
Yeah.
Miles just driving through farm country. The leaves are unbelievable up there. They got lucky.
This is
Yep, I'm ready when you are. Good evening, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order. Would you stand for the pledge of the flag, please? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Town clerk to do the roll call, please.
Councilwoman Annette,
Here.
Councilman Harvey DePew,
Here.
Councilman Hewitt,
Here.
Councilman Paddock,
Here.
Supervisor Baden.
Here. Our first order of business tonight will be a public hearing on the 2022 preliminary budget. The budget is currently funded, the general fund. The operating costs are $2,469,602 with a tax levy of $536,938. That's a change from the current year tax levy of a minus 15.43%. The highway fund is an operating cost of $1,989,927 with a tax levy of $1,400,427 with a change in tax levy from this year of 3.21%. The total for those two funds, which makes up the town's taxes, the operating costs are $4,459,529, a tax levy of $937,000, excuse me, $365 for a tax levy decrease 0.74% from the current tax levy. The special districts are three special districts. The Accord Lighting District is operating costs of $2,520, a tax levy of $1,465 with a change tax levy of a minus 41.09%. Kerhonkson Lighting The operating costs are $1,620. The tax levy is $940 with change in tax levy of a minus 42.40%. Berm lighting, operating costs are $630. The tax levy is $365 for a change in tax levy of a minus 42.41%. The reason for those large changes is Central Hudson has changed the majority of these over to LED fixtures. They use significantly less electricity, and we are putting some of the fund balance back into those accounts, and that is the reason for the large change, decrease in the tax levy. So with that, the town clerk has a list here of people who wish to speak. We will go in that order first, allowing all those people to speak. If anyone else wishes to speak after that, who hasn't already spoken, we'll recognize you. If anyone wishes to speak a second time after everyone has had a chance to speak once, we will allow that. I will remind people that you're speaking to the board, not to the public. And with that, Kate, I'll ask you call the first name.
Are we on YouTube, Mike?
That-
Are we on YouTube?
We are on YouTube.
Okay.
Yep, thank you for
Shirley
checking.
Avery,
I'd like to reserve mine till later.
Carol Fisher,
I'm glad it's not just me and my husband and Shirley. tonight. I understand there's a 23% on Mike's pay raise that wants to do. I know it's probably not a comparison, but I've been driving bus for years and I'm considered part-time, but I'm almost 40 hours. And I bust my hump out there and in traffic and out of traffic. And I've never had a 23% pay raise in I'm lucky if I get $1 raise through the years. In 1995, I was making $14.80. And I've only come up like $10 or a little more through all those years. There's a lot of jobs part-time, make your own hours, you know. The world today, if it was better, then maybe we could see it. But let me tell you, it's hard living. People are retired, are back working, and it's not easy. And I don't go on plane trips, I work, we work. You know, once in a while we do our camping at Rondout because we can't afford to do anything else, but it's a place home away from home. I reserve if I have anything more to say. Thank you.
Charlie Fisher,
Yeah, I don't think any elected official should get a raise this year because things are so expensive. Everything keeps going up. I just had to pay $600 for fuel yesterday. I get 200 gallons. And that's half my social security.
Judy Hasbrook,
Hi, I'm kind of in agreement with Carol because I used to work for the county and I worked for the county for 27 years in a management position. And we only got the same raise that CSEA gave, which was 2 to 3% a year. The only time I got more than that is when I first accepted the management position and took on a whole nother department for only $4,000 more a year. But 23% seems kind of steep, and especially in this economic time. So we'd like an explanation as to where that figure came from and why so much. And why does he warrant it? So maybe we can get some answers to that tonight. Thank you.
Ruth Bendelius,
I was at the last meeting when there was discussion about a raise from supervisor. I think that 22 or 23% is a very unhealthy precedent in this town or any town. I don't agree with it. I think it should be looked at some more.
Zorian Pinsky.
I'm here not for the purpose, but I would like to make comments about supervisor salary. I think it's time to stop pretending that $39,000 supervisor practically spending full time is enough. I'm not saying how much needs to be raised. And we're paying not a politician, it was elected person, but it's administrator, it's a manager. And he's spending a lot of time devoting to business of the town. But I'm not here for that. I'm speaking, I recently became as an auxiliary member of CAFAS, Kerhax and Accord First Aid Squad. And what I'm saying, it's an alarm call for the board and for the community. Very few in the community are aware about the dire circumstances it may face with availability of the first aid service in the nearest future. The CAFAS cannot longer exist by just using volunteers. They are simply not available. The organization is responding to about 900 calls per year, including partially for the town of Larson, and it cannot keep up with the demand. As a result, they're about to hire professionals to fill the gaps. For start, they will bring in 2 emergency medical technicians for 3 days per week, 12 hours shift. Going forward, they would need those technicians to work twice as many days per week. Then the service would be provided 70% of the time by professionals. All that would require financial contribution from the town. The estimate is that for 2022, CAFAS will need about $145,000 from the town to sustain service. In the following years, the amount will increase by from 6 to 10% per year. If that amount isn't provided by the town, the organization would become insolvent in about a year. The ideal solution for the situation is creating an ambulance districts like the fire district. Yes, some hurdles exist for creation of the district, but with persistence and creativity, the task should be solved. After all, the residents will, in 2022, contribute by paying total $780,000 in taxes towards the fire district. The timely first aid service isn't less important than a fire emergency service. They both go together. So the residents should weigh yes versus no to the additional taxation. Remember that the community is counting on the first aid service as well as many businesses in town, especially the short-term accommodation, new businesses like West End, Arrowwood, and Innes, other new establishment providing food services. Absence of the first aid service would be critical and in some unfortunate circumstances, life-threatening. I give you a few examples what the calls I get. 29 years old female, male abdominal pain, 74 years old female leg injury from assault, 61 years old male fallen back injury, 29 years old male semi-conscious, 22 years old female difficulties breathing. A call from Mattel, nature, male unresponsive. So as you can see, the residents and the guests are all dependent on the Kerhaxen Accord First Aid Squad. Your attention to these critical needs is required.
So Ryan, would I be able to get a copy of that,
Okay.
just for the record? Thank you. Stephen Roberts or Stephen Roberts? Stephen.
Town supervisor has 3 different jobs in that title. A town supervisor is chairman of the town, town executive and fiscal officer. Those are very three different specific positions. It is my understanding that the job increase of the salary is because the position has gone from part-time to full-time. If that is the case for the change, I'd like the council to rewrite the job description to indicate that it is now a full-time job, and really clearly define each of these three parts that the supervisor is expected to do. Thank you.
Sherry Ellsworth.
I've worked for New York State for 16 years, full-time, keeping inmates in jail, and I don't make $49,000 a year. I've never gotten more than 2% from the state. I think 23% increase for anybody is outrageous with the cost of living these days for people to survive. I'm a single mother. I struggle every day, but my kids make it. And I just think it's totally unfair that you ask taxpayers to give you that kind of raise.
Clayton
And I
Haugen.
reserve my
Sorry.
right to comment later.
Clayton Haugen.
I too work for the Department of Corrections. Recently retired after 26.5 years. So far, I'm in 7 years without a contract. We've been in negotiation for 7 years. We still don't know what we're going to receive, but I'll guarantee one thing, it's not going to be 23%. Instead of spending that 23, and I also agree with the rabbi, you guys have the cart in front of the horse. You've got a job description that reads part-time, yet you're approving a raise for a full-time position. It's unacceptable. Get your ducks in a row before you approve something like this. Nobody would begrudge you a decent raise. Something along 7% might be acceptable, provided you can prove to the public that it's a full-time job. You haven't done that. Okay, every predecessor prior to this supervisor has been able to accomplish these tasks at the same part-time hours. Now it becomes imperative to give 23% in a one-time shot. No, that money would be better spent maybe giving more money to Mr. Fry to fix the roads around here. Or rather than giving the money there, maybe more training would be in order for the supervisor to be able to better manage his time. That's an option. I'd rather see that money spent to help the town rather than helping one person. And I reserve the right to say something else in the future.
Charles Nerco.
Suppose you call 911 because you or a family member is in need of life-saving medical treatment, and there's a 1 in 10 chance that the first aid squad is unable to show up. That is not the plot to a horror movie. That is the state of EMS in the town of Rochester today. My name is Charles Nerco. I moved to this beautiful town earlier this year. For the past 20 years, I've been involved in EMS, and in the last decade, I've been involved in EMS administration. We have a terrific first aid squad that since its funding in 1965 has provided millions of dollars of free, prompt emergency medical care to our town. There is a nationwide EMS volunteer shortage. This is not a squad issue. This is not even a local issue or an Ulster County issue. It's affecting rural volunteer ambulance services throughout the nation. The main problem is that volunteers have to work during the day to provide for their families. And it's tough to attract volunteers in the midst of a pandemic and asking for them to take on professional level life-saving work in addition to maintaining their full-time jobs. In addition, 2 of our top EMTs are now on medical leave at the squad. The squad is proposing a hybrid staffing approach that would allow the squad to hire EMS professionals on a part-time basis to augment the work of our dedicated volunteers. As an emergency stopgap, the squad has made this investment on its own for this year, but the squad will go insolvent and close its doors unless the town could provide funding. Given the nature of rural EMS, it is not sustainable to have a 24/7, 365 service relying only on insurance reimbursements in a rural area such as ours. We'd like to thank the town board for considering our budget request. We need the help. We're accountable to the politicians and the community. We prioritize patient care and look to the town board for leadership on the political issues. One way that KFAS can help is I saw that Marbletown is on the agenda, and I know that they presented a funding request to the board. Marbletown covers 100 parcels in the town of Rochester. At our last meeting, KFAS voted, and also too, Marbletown has paid hybrid staff and are threatening to cut off town of Rochester residents because the town of Rochester doesn't fund our squad, and Marbletown tax dollars are funding Marbletown squad. So they don't want to respond to the town of Rochester. KFAS voted unanimously at our last meeting to absorb and enlarge our service area so we can continue to service all town of Rochester residents so they don't have to be threatened by getting cut off from Marbletown. We're willing to do whatever the board wants in terms of expanding the service area to find a solution to this. If it's a line item or an ambulance district, the squad just wants to be funded and looks to the politicians for the political aspects. But to the extent there are town boundary issues complicating these issues, the squad is willing to do what it takes to make this successful and ensure that every time someone in our town calls 911, a local community ambulance responder is there for that critical call. I'd like to reserve the rest of my time and thank the town board for its consideration of these very serious issues.
Tim Bunch.
Firstly, we need a little simplification with this budget. Carl Chipman used to turn in 8 pages. This is 47. Trying to work your way through it. And I have a degree in accounting, is a nightmare. We have outstanding debt. We say we're reducing the budget. We get this outstanding debt. You can't be reducing the budget by 3, 4, 5%, say, and then still carry outstanding debt. That doesn't compute together. That's a falsehood, and it's misleading. 23% raise, I think, has been well covered. It's not that, Mr. Baden, you deserve a raise. Just 23% for the board to raise their hand and vote on is just way out of control for one shot. Taxpayers don't deserve it. You're looking for places to save money within the budget line. There's 5 board members, not 6. Why is the town attorney here every single board meeting? We obviously have to pay for her time. I would not expect an attorney to sit and not get paid for her time. She's not doing it out of the goodness of her heart, nor should she. However, when a law question arises as a town board member, that should be tabled, and then the attorney can be contacted as needed. That would lower the budget line. And now that budget line is looking at page I believe it was 7 or 8 of the budget, has a budget line increase of 48% for the attorney, from 52,000 to 92, if I remember correctly. The Nut Tree Park, we got to look at the Nut Tree Park. It's a line on the budget. I went back there. There's not a nut tree planted. Why are we spending money on nut trees without planting the trees in almost a year? The Greenway Path. We're going to put money into the Greenway Path. I like rail trails. I think it's important for us to have the rail trail. We can do a lot to fix this rail trail. Me and my wife use it often. I would like to see a way for the users of the rail trail to have like a little patch or a badge or something that they could wear, that they could donate money to the town. And I would definitely be willing to kick money to the town
That way I could wear a patch saying I support the rail trail. That would give you guys some money to work with, and you could get some stone to fix the mud. So I wouldn't have to keep washing my sneakers. The public definitely deserves EMS coverage. Without a doubt. Especially, you know, we have a lot of elderly population. One of them is laying on the floor with a heart attack. They managed to get to the phone and then now nobody responds. That would be absolute tragedy for our town. So I think we need to look at some other options. I was a volunteer fireman for 5 years. I worked the roads, the cop for 12. We could join services. We could have the fire department and EMS combined. That saves money. You have well-trained firemen. They could be more trained. That would open up more volunteers. And I am definitely not against paying some drivers so we can make sure that ambulance rolls during the daytime on those off hours. There's a lot of young people in our town that are smart. They could learn how to stabilize and get that person to the hospital as quickly as possible. So if you look at these budget lines that I just mentioned, you have roughly 40,000 that is going to the lawyer. You got 10,000 that's going to the 23% raise that everybody's talking about. You got the rail trail expansion for the Green Deal. What is that, 50 or 100,000? I don't even know. It's really difficult to figure out. The nut trees, what is that, another $5,000? So that's roughly about 150,000 without even having to raise the budget prices. That could pay for EMS drivers. I think I'd much rather, if I'm on the floor clutching my chest, know that I hear sirens coming, than I can think about, oh, those lovely nut trees. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Troy, done.
Everything I said, was going to say has been said, so I won't waste your time.
Rick Jones.
Yeah, I'm not here to talk about the supervisor's salary increase, except to say that I assume that the board has looked at the amount of work the supervisor is currently doing versus past supervisors, or even the first year that the current supervisor may have served, and is evaluating whether that's an increase of hours without a substantial or significant increase. My own experience in observing what goes on in the town board, there's more work to do. So the board will have to decide what kind of commensurate increase that may call for. What I'm really here to talk about is the planning board, and just to petition the board to sustain the amount of money that I asked for this year on the new planning board chair. We asked for $5,000. Give you a little bit of a quick background of how we manage the money. There were application fees, as some of you are aware, maybe all of you are aware. There are 3 of you at least that have served on the planning board. But there are application fees which have increased over a couple of years to be more commensurate with the amount of work that's done by the building department. Those application fees publish that. In addition to that, we'll be coming to you to institute some escrow fees. What's that for? That's not salary. Those are monies to pay professionals, whether it be the attorney or it be a planning or engineer person to evaluate the projects that come before us. What I've seen and what the previous planning board chairs have seen over the last 4 or 5 years is the number of applications has increased, the complexity of the applications have increased, and the litigiousness of some of the applicants, not all of them, has also increased, with some people arriving in the community and believing that they should be able to do whatever they want without respect to our environmental concerns, respect to the subdivision code, so on and so forth. So the board is being far more or more careful about how we handle these applicants and what we ask them to do to satisfy the subdivision codes applying to the planning process, as well as the town codes that apply to the planning process. And that does call for more expertise than I have, or for that matter, anybody else on the board. But again, those fees are going to be paid for by the escrow monies which we're allowed to charge, but we want to codify them better so that the board can be comfortable that we're not charging too much. So my petition is for you to take a look at the money we asked for. It's simply to cover the cost of training, the cost of the huge salary of, what is it, $25 to $30 a week. Maybe it's more than that, Mike. I'm not even sure what my check represents, but it's not much. We do it not because we're looking to make money. We simply do it because we enjoy it. Although I can tell you that the hours are incredibly long for everybody, particularly the chair and the associate chair, but many hours. So the $5,000 we've asked for is for training, possibility of conference here and there, paying for part of the cost of the planner that we don't feel that we can pass on to the applicant. There are some very small applications like lot lines that we just don't want to charge any more than an application fee. And if we have the planner look at it, we hope to be able to pay for it out of those funds. So thanks for letting me speak. Thank you.
Larry DeWitt.
I started talking with Carl Pittman about 8 years ago about what I regarded as the need to increase the salary of the town supervisor, his salary. And in my discussions with him, I thought it was clear that he was working 50-hour weeks, 60-hour weeks, and that a salary equivalent to the town clerk would be very reasonable, and one could even perhaps make a rationale for making it larger than that. But in any case, I've felt since I've been here that I've watched several different town supervisors work, that it's the demands of the job are a full-time job, sometimes 60, 70-hour weeks from where I sit. That's what I've seen. And therefore I'm very much in favor of this salary increase. It's a hell of a lot on a percentage basis, but had the salary been at the right level, from my perspective, to begin with, it wouldn't be so. It's really catching up, not an annual salary increase. It's catching up, from my perspective, with reality.
That is the last name we have signed up on the list. So at this point, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. And we're going to start with people who haven't spoke yet. You want me to?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Costa Brown, and I came here to talk about a few things actually. One this gentleman already addressed, and I'd like to reiterate that, and I'll get to it in a minute. But I also wanted to talk about the race for the supervisor. To me, it doesn't matter exactly who the individual is, so it's really about that position. And having talked to a few people, and I'm not the person who's deciding, but if it is commensurate, as the gentleman prior to me said, with the amount of work that goes into it, and also looking at how much it has been increased in the past few years and how it compares to others potentially, I think we should consider not looking at a percentage raise, but looking at what a person needs to live essentially. And I would focus on that rather than a percentage basis only. I understand there are certain constraints. So I think we should be looking at it from a financial standpoint where those numbers can be taken down, as the gentleman said. Second point is I do feel that an increase in EMS service would help the town in a large way. I think we do need to come up with some creative solutions, and one was mentioned earlier by him about partnering with perhaps the fire department and looking at funding broadly. I do not know the laws or the dynamics behind it, but looking at it creatively would be helpful. Thank you.
Gentlemen in the back.
Hi, folks. I want to thank everybody who served in the prison, and fire department, and everybody for your service. I don't know if I should start number 4 or number 1. But I'll start with the last one. I think it's quite exorbitant, a 23% raise. I think 2.3 is more in line instead of 23. It's just my own opinion. I was a fireman in the city for a number of years back in the 90s. 80s and 90s. And at one point, we were on a 2-year contract basis. They offered us, this is for putting your ass on the line every day, day in, day out. Whenever you signed up, you go to work, you don't know if you're coming home. 0, the other one was 0 for 2 years. That's what they offered us. I'll repeat it to everybody. 0, 0. That's what they thought of us. And I'm gonna skip around because to borrow an idea from my good friend Anna, she said politicians should earn a salary of less than what a new Army, Navy, or Air Force recruit makes. A little lower.
Amen, bro.
Thank you. And I left out the Marines, but they're part of the Navy. No, I wouldn't. And this whole debacle called state time is so Biden-esque in nature. No transparency, high governmental costs, no accountability. And again, that's my own opinion. As a taxpayer, I'm entitled to make that opinion. And lastly, I'm going to shut up in about 20 minutes or so. In this room tonight, I want to ask, I want to do a little canvassing. Who, if you don't mind, raise your hand, whoever's on a.
Excuse me, you're speaking to the board, not to the public, so thank you.
Well, I'm talking to everybody. Again, who in this room is on a fixed income, if I may ask? That's a lot of fixed incomes to deal with an exorbitant raise that's requested. And I'm not against people earning money, earning raises, but 23% is way out of line, like I said. And that's it for me. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Sir, can you give your name for the record?
Your
name?
Bill.
Phil? Last name?
Bill. Bill.
Anybody else? Any folks? You didn't really speak. Would you like to speak now, Troy?
If I may.
Okay, and then we'll go to Shirley.
I don't like repetition, so I didn't want to state some things that were previously stated, but perhaps I could shed a little bit of historical light on this job of the supervisor position. I witnessed it, I lived it as a child, because as many of you know, my dad, Vinnie Dunn, was the town supervisor for a period of time. So I watched this as I lived it growing up. He had a desk in our living room with a separate phone line that's still there, 8212, that was dedicated for the town of Rochester because the business line was 7766. He was a man who ran his own business, started after World War II, yet he could do the supervisory position. Now, you're probably going to tell me, well, that's dated. And yes, I will agree with you, it's dated information. But I will come back at you and say, if we need a full-time position, perhaps government has gotten too large in our little town of Rochester. It was a part-time position. In my opinion, it should stay a part-time position. Now, maybe those old World War II codgers were so goddamn tough and efficient that they could run a full-time business and be a supervisor. Maybe the people today can't do that. I'm not going to judge them for that at all. But all I can say is that traditionally, it was a part-time position. And you can't tell me that there's absolutely that much more work to substantiate to be a full-time position today. To the board, but just to reiterate what the gentleman here said, yeah, absolutely true. But it's tough to compare the proverbial apples and oranges of what members of our armed forces, obviously I lived that. All I'll leave you with is that if it doesn't get your goat that somebody can make millions of dollars to carry a ball or put it through a hoop, yet a Navy SEAL who can pick off a terrorist from 1,000 meters makes 50 grand a year, that kind of goes along with what this gentleman is saying. That doesn't justify anything. That only supports it. It's not always fair. But let's just try to look at the facts here and what the job really entails. And once again, if we think we need a full-time position, maybe it's because government's gotten too large.
Shirley Avery.
To start off with, I just give my heartfelt thoughts to Tammy Avery. I was a member of the squad for 5 years. And she is in critical condition in a hospital somewhere, I'm not sure where. She is the captain of the squad. I remember hearing them say they needed help way back then. They do have many CDs in bank, I do know that, and they did have, if I remember, of money. They talked then, this is going back 6 years, 7 years ago, of becoming board authorized, sort of like the fire department. They've always had problems. They did have hired professionals back then. They had George and another guy. Remember George? They were excellent help. They had hired help. They just couldn't afford to keep going. They do bill your insurance when you go in the school, in the ambulance. And that's what was keeping them going, to pay those guys. They were great help. The problem is, as he said, mom and dad are all working a job and a half, 2 jobs. They don't have time to donate and get the training. I offered then to sit down with the system they had of I am responding with each member to get them on that, to get them to do their time. It got too cliquey, too many friends. They hang out, call goes off, whoever's on call goes, and the rest of the crowd hangs out at the squad building and sits there. It's really sad. They do need the help and they do need the money, but they do need better organizational skills. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. And I was voted out for feeling that way because I offered to help them and they didn't want the help because they were afraid I knew more than they did. On the other note, this 23%, I live on a fixed income. My husband's disabled. I'm disabled. There's no way that we could afford this increase in taxes, and the county taxes are going up so many percent. There's no way that we're going to get the rebates from the county that we're expecting because their taxes are going up, county taxes. Ours have to reflect that part too. This all looks good on paper, but 23%, I've never had a raise like that, and I've worked my whole life. Even working for myself, I couldn't take that kind of a raise. I'm sorry, that's how I feel.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Gentlemen?
My question is, I gotta have an idea. Being 23% in 1 year is like phenomenal. I mean, I'm retired from state, and I remember getting 2%, 3%. And our government gave us a great one year, 4 zeros in a row for 4 years. So I can't understand, instead of taking 23% one shot, why don't you try to spread it over, because you just got reelected, over this new term. If it's a 4-year term, divide it up over 4 years. So it's a little thing.
2 years.
2 years, divide it up over 2 years. You know, because we can't all take 23%. So if it's like a 9 or 10%, then we work into it, we get going, it might help us along. Okay, just a suggestion.
Can I get your name for the record? Last name?
Geelen, Geelen.
Is there anybody else that would like to? Oh, hang on, Shari, we have someone else who spoke yet. Roxanne?
I was just going to ask, is it possible to get a more complete job description of all the things that you think are now in it, you'll be adding to your position if it is in fact full-time? And is it possible to codify that job description? And my second question is, if the supervisor has another full-time job, how will you juggle those 2 full-time jobs?
Sherry?
I have a question about the other elephant in the room, skate time 209. Is the purchase of skate time included in this budget, or is that going to go up and raise our taxes even more next year? Is there a reason we're not utilizing the grant that we were already approved for improvements on the building we already own that we only have to pay 49% back of, but yet over 30 years, we're gonna pay $18 million for skate time and allow the people that we're buying it from, who you already signed the contract for, and the only way to void that contract is a vote of no. So I just want clarification as to how you can sign a contract for a building that we haven't even voted that we wanted and make these decisions for our town as the supervisor without speaking to the members of the town to see what our wants were. Why we're not using the grant that we're approved for that we only pay 49% back of, and why it's okay to spend $18 million of our money over 30 years.
Is there anyone else?
Just
Mr.
one more
Bunch?
little thing to go with what you said. When you guys give it, I'm sure that you guys are gonna give us the description, job description, so we can see it eventually. I'm hoping. So when you do, can you have the two side by side so we can compare the differences? Because if you just give us the new one, I don't know where to find the old. Our internet page, the town's internet page is extremely difficult to navigate. It's kind of needs to be updated.
Anybody else? Lady in the front.
Angelina Lira, Lira. I have a question about skate time. When we went to the meeting there in October, I think it was, we were supposed to get a comparison on what's wrong with the existing buildings that we're in compared to the skate time budget. And I was just wondering if that ever went through, because you said you'd give 2 weeks, Adam.
Again, we're working on that. As a matter of fact, I think it's part of our discussion topics tonight.
And I don't agree with the 23% raise either. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Martin?
Yeah, Ray Martin. I'm not knowledgeable enough to know whether indeed a raise is warranted or not. But if indeed it is, I think it should be more in line with the cost of living. I was an educator for 36 years and I recently just got a raise. And it amounted to $15 a month. After 36 years. So if indeed, and again, I don't know whether a raise is warranted or not, I'm not going to judge on that. But if indeed it is, it should be more in the cost, in line with the cost of living rather than a multiplier of it.
Ms. Vendelius?
It seems to me that we've done have a lot more work to do, getting information and whatnot, running around, which is very time consuming compared to today with the use of a computer. You have instant action to get whatever information you need. So I don't think you can really compare some of these jobs. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the public hearing on the budget? Mr. Coleman?
Mike Coleman. Start by saying I'm sympathetic to everyone who doesn't feel like they're getting paid enough. I think corrections officers and bus drivers and everyone should pretty much be getting paid more than they are, because we all work hard, and folks on CNN and Fox News and playing basketball and football, they don't work as hard as a lot of people in this room. So I want to start by saying that. I think it's also important that this is not a merit increase. This is not Mike's getting a salary bump because he did such a great job as supervisor. This is kind of looking at the long-term plan for the town. And I agree, we need to define what the role and the scope of the supervisor is. That should be clear, because Mike's not always going to be in that seat. Someone else will be in that seat eventually. And we need to know what our expectations. We need to tell them what we expect of them. So I think we can look at percentages all we want, but we really have to think about who is going to be sitting in that seat 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 10 years from now, because they're the ones that are going to be helping us run this town. They're going to be the ones that we get to speak to and tell them what our issues are. I think the town clerk does a phenomenal job, earns every penny that she gets. The highway superintendent does a phenomenal job, earns every penny. I think we really need to just look at this in terms of what do we want? Who do we value in this town? How do we show our value towards our employees? And how do we ensure that we get the best people in that job? Because it's all well and good to say you want to, you want to get people at the lowest cost for the taxpayers. I agree with all that. I pay taxes too. But at the same time, there's also a point at which, you're paying somebody so low that you don't want to get the person that's going to do the cheapest job necessarily. You don't take your car to the mechanic that's going to be cheapest, but has no experience fixing your car. You don't hire a babysitter that's, the lowest on the price scale to take care of your kids if they've never taken care of kids before. So there's a certain thing there for competence, and we want to make sure that the salary is going to encourage people who want to do the job, who are going to work hard. And I think we do need to define that for them, what our expectations are. But I think we need to not look at this as a personal raise, as a merit increase. We have to look at what the town is willing to do for the person in that role. And we can all talk together about how we want to define that. Thank you.
Gentleman in the back.
Yeah, I did, and, right now, presently, we're living in times. This isn't normal. We're not living in the normal times. That said, I just want to, I'm sure everyone's aware, but for anyone living in Ivory Tower, diesel, I just drove into Pennsylvania the other day. Diesel was $3.99 a gallon. And it's not going to go down, it's bound to go up. It's probably $3.75 around here, $3.60. And keep that in mind. That's just to get from point A to point B to buy groceries, to go shopping, to go somewhere just to get out of Dodge. Heat your house. Yeah. So thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, strange question, I'm sitting here thinking, you just got you went to be reelected, correct? And you knew the salary that you were going in. So if you felt that you needed 23% increase, why would you run for that job if you might not get it? I don't understand it. You ran for this job, now you want that raise. I don't understand.
And you voted for the raise.
Huh?
And you voted for the
Yeah, I don't
raise.
understand. Why would you do the job and then try to get a raise? It was that good of a job. I was in politics and I ran for town board, we never got raises.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes, Shirley Avery.
Social Security is giving seniors, anybody on Social Security a 5.9% cost of living raise. That's something that should be considered in this vote.
That's what I wanted to mention, yes. And it's going to be a maximum, and most of it is going to go back. That is going to be.
Please, please,
Yeah,
it's not talk to each other.
He just did.
Thank you.
He just did. He trusts the public. He wasn't talking to you, he was talking to the public.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the public hearing?
Because it was me, Mike.
Anyone else?
No, I was asking.
Yeah, it's okay.
Manuela.
Yeah, I want
Manuela,
to
do you want to
say,
speak?
in terms of percentages.
Yeah.
Yeah, we live on only on Social Security. And the biggest increase is going to be probably next year, maximum 6%. And it's going to be only from January. Who is giving us money for the money we spend now? We need to spend now on everything extra. And that 6%, let's say, increase is going to go mostly to Medicare automatically. So we are going to have nothing. Okay, that's something without.
Mr. Bunch?
One more thing, one positive thing. A positive thing out there. We thank you all for your service. It takes a lot to sit there and do your time. It is a public service that you provide when you run, and that's something that has to be considered as well. That's why I remember Paddock last week when the exchange was about the race, but the
part of it was raise the salary up to draw other people that maybe have a family that wants to, you can't have his salary so low that it doesn't draw the best that we may have to offer. But as this part-time position is, it doesn't really pull family men that are gonna run and hold a position for only 2 years. It pulls those type of people that are businessmen that have retired, that are going to run our town the most efficient way for 2 years as a public service. So the salary should not be the focus of why you want to be a town supervisor. It should be, the focus should be public service. And then, of course, we don't want someone to go into debt because they're in the public service side. So that's why I think that it is appropriate, this 3 or 4% thing.
Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak?
I'd just like to thank everyone for the comments on the first aid squad. We welcome your suggestions. The squad has reinvigorated its auxiliary, which means that you don't have to volunteer in a medical capacity answering calls. I was a volunteer EMT 20 years ago. I found a way to give back to the squad through service, through my own knowledge. My colleague Zorian is also an auxiliary member for the squad. And anyone who has ideas about helping the squad, how it can function better, please consider volunteering in whatever capacity you can. We want to be transparent, particularly since we are asking for funding from the town. And we welcome all the ideas and insight you can offer to make our squad the best it could possibly be. So we're there for you in a time of need. I love the idea about partnering with the fire departments. We work with them closely, our brothers and sisters on the fire department. For administrative reasons having to do with the state, it's not a feasible idea because of the way we're licensed, but I love the idea. And we do have close teamwork otherwise. If there are any further ideas, we're here to listen, we're here to work with the town, and ultimately all the residents who are here together.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Mr. Martin?
Inasmuch as the position is an elected position, I don't think that we should be tossing around the idea of salary as being a magnet as an attractant to that position. I agree that's more along the lines of town service and dedication to doing what's right for the town. It is an elected position. I don't think we need a magnet being tossed out there or a carrot being tossed out there as some kind of totem in order to attract somebody for the position. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak? There is one thing I would like to bring to the board, because I wasn't able to be here when we discussed my departments. So I just wanted to discuss in the records management end, there was an increase, and I just want to explain that project. And I wanted to say this while there's people here, because maybe they can give me good networks. Back in the 60s, so back in the 60s, I want to stand back here. We had an honor wall that used to be out on the corner of Granite Road. And it was put in storage, and it was for all residents of the town that served in the military. It has not been updated since World War II. I did find the honor wall, and it is about 6 feet long, and I'm working on having it restored and updated. So if anybody has a great network of me finding out, and I'm looking at Troy, because I know you're good with the VFW, any way of me being able to find out residents of the town that served in the military, if they would like to contact me or let me know an avenue I can go to make sure we get everybody listed on there that deserves to be on there. I am going to go through the combat veteran and just active servicemen that get the town's exemption. I think that's a good start for me. But if any one of you want to help me with this project, I really encourage it. It's probably going to take about 2 years to do. And so you know where I am. Yes, Mr. Martin?
I think it's an excellent idea, especially since we have a recent Gold Star family in my town.
Yes.
One more in the back.
I'd like to help you with it, but there's another option you can do like Kingston does. They charge the families so much for the banners that are hanging in Kingston. It's a way to bring in revenue into the town. My father has a banner hanging in Kingston right now because I paid for it. So it's a way, if we could do those banners even around the town on the flagpoles to recognize our own members in our own town. But I'd be happy to help you with it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the budget?
Yeah, we'll hold the other public comment. Okay, I'd ask the board for a motion.
I just have a question for Kate.
Yeah.
I don't see an increase in the records management section.
So in the equipment total?
Yep.
It's in the
Scanner.
professional services
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
So the professional service line, a portion of that is for the grant, that is the digitization of the building department records. And I believe 5,000 of that, no, it's more than that. Because the grant in total is $60,000. And that includes the scanner and approximately 50,000 of that. So the balance of that professional services line is for Kate's project.
Thank you. That's what I love about.
Part of it is, I'm sorry, part of it is in the contractual and then in the equipment total. It might be a little higher than what I expected. But, I don't know really what the cost is gonna be to do solar lighting in there to have it lit up at night and, you know, to refurbish everything.
Nice.
I might be estimating high, I don't know.
We say professional services, but it's under contractual. Is that correct?
Yes, professional services is under contractual, not personal services.
That's what I asked you, is.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
It is on page
5,
Personal service, the personal.
not personal,
service line-
personal is payroll.
Yes,
Correct.
that is, that's the person that's
It's
actually
on
working
page
on the budget.
23 of 45. It's the contractual line, supplies and materials was $500. That's for the records management grant. The professional services, the 56,000 that's asked for, a portion of that was designated for the conversion of the records, and the remainder is for Kate. And I could go back and look at the grant of what was for the records for the conversion, but it's approximately between, I think it was 8,000 you asked for, because I think it was 48. And Kate's ask was for 8, I believe. I can go back to that.
And that's what I appreciate about the 60-page budget. It used to just have a number 65,530, and now we have every line item, and we spent the last month and a half analyzing every line item.
Okay, with all that being said, so I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing on the budget.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay. I'd like to ask us to set a special meeting to be held Wednesday, November 17th. I did not put a time in there. I'd like to make that be at 7 p.m. The reason being is I have a 5 p.m. meeting in Kingston, with the county executive's office that day. That the supervisors are asked to attend, but that should be done by 6. So I'd ask for the special meeting to be held November 17th, 2021, and request the town clerk circulate notice, and that will be a chance for us to go through this. This way it gives everybody time to go through the budget, decide what changes they think should be made, and we go from there.
Is that open to the public?
It will be a public meeting.
So should we vote on closing
We have-
the hearing?
We did, didn't we?
We got a first and a
Oh,
second.
I got a first and second. I'm sorry, my apologies. So all in favor to close the public hearing? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now, sorry, my apologies. So the town board sets a special meeting to be held Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the Harold Lipton Community Center, and request the town clerk circulate notice.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Can we announce the purpose a little more? Or a little louder?
The budget adoption.
Changes are made to the budget. We have to resend this one for the adoption.
I believe once the public hearing is closed, the town board can make
Yeah.
changes and then.
They can
adopt.
make them tonight and pass it tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
Let me,
Yeah.
I just
Once the
sent
public
following
hearing is
to do, so I
concluded,
didn't want
so
to-
we're at the preliminary budget. The final budget is up to the town board. They can make changes. There are requirements that you can't increase
Right.
certain line items, certain salary line items after the public hearing. It can be no more than what was advertised in the preliminary budget for all the salaries of elected officials, with the exception of judges. I don't know why judges are not on that list, but judges can be changed.
It can be less, correct?
It can be less, it
Yeah.
cannot be more,
Cannot be more.
cannot be more.
These are caps.
So, do I take a motion second?
Mhm.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so Kate, if you will advertise that. Mary Lou, attorney for the town report.
yes. a couple things. One is I have contacted the comptroller about whether elected officials can get extra, like the hazard pay, but I haven't heard.
Premium pay?
The pay on the
ARPA?
on the, yes. on
Okay,
the ARPA.
okay, because we got that on the agenda later, so.
Right, but
Okay.
so I just want to let you know that I have not heard back from them, so we can discuss that more later. On the Hoots appeal, the attorney for for Allison Hoots, they had a big problem with the computer system, so the appellate division, without any objection from them, with the attorney, gave them until November 29th to file their appeal papers. So normally I'd be working on our response by now, but they have extra time, which if I needed it, they would give it to me. So I haven't called that. Just to let you know, I got a call from someone on Cliff Road and they wanted my email to send me questions because there's new people living on the road. I told them that they had to deal with that through you, that I don't just discuss with anyone that I take my direction from you. So just to know that may be coming up again. And I know you have stuff about advertising for appointments, and recognition is one of those things. I was looking on our website and it looks like we have some people expiring like in 22 and some in 23. And it's kind of split, but the way the state law is written, it's supposed to be like the planning board and the zoning board. So there's supposed to be somebody going off every year.
Yeah, we got out of sequence on some of those because
Okay.
we appointed nobody and then we appointed multiple
Okay, so
people
that
in 1 year.
I
but-
wasn't sure what.
But I
happened
didn't
there.
think the state, I thought the state law was just at the initial creation of it in hopes that, so if we have to,
No, it's supposed to be a rotating thing, and if you add
Okay.
more members, like we need at least 5, you can have as many as 7.
Mhm.
If you upped it to 7, then you start increasing it to 7-year terms as you go. Okay, just something to think about when you're.
well, not on the Recreation Commission though. That's not a 5-year and 7-year term.
Under state law, if you have 5 members, it's,
5 years.
you know, I looked at it.
No, the planning board and the ZBA are 1 a year, but like HPC, those are 3-year terms. ECC
Well,
is 3-year
according
terms.
to the town law,
Okay,
it's.
we should talk offline
Yeah, so
about
we
that
can,
because
just
it's-
something to
it's-
think about
Yeah.
as that's going, so if that's the case.
Because that's not the way our law reads for ECC and HPC. But, so
And it may not be that for ECP and HCP, but it is specifically
for
for recreation.
recreation, okay.
So you may have done it thinking it's a commission,
Right.
but Recreation Commission has particular
We-
rules about that.
We changed our title from Youth Commission to Recreation because it was, it was formed by resolution.
Right.
So maybe,
Recreation commissions can be formed by resolution as
Okay,
well,
okay,
but, so maybe you just did a carryover and
We
that's
did.
how it was.
we
And
did.
So something to look at, that's all,
Okay,
something to
okay,
keep on our,
understood.
and that is it.
Okay. Kate, town clerk, tax collector report?
For the month of October, the town clerk collected $42,163.37. On the tax collector end, in the month of October, we did receive a payment that was postmarked in May. So the town will be getting $82 in penalty for that. We don't know where. So that's it on tax collection.
Jeff, anything on highway?
No, I don't really have anything exciting to report. We're transitioning from our spring and summer mode to our winter mode. Mary Lou's favorite time of the year, of course.
It's true.
But no, other than that, I don't have anything to share tonight.
Okay, I want to thank our highway superintendent and his crew for their assistance in taking out the old playground equipment. It was scheduled to go in last week. The install crew got delayed because of weather on the previous jobs. They actually arrived this afternoon and will be starting tomorrow morning. They anticipate it will be in place by next week. They're going to work through the weekend, try to catch back up with their scheduling. So but thank you guys for your assistance in removing that. It's greatly appreciated.
Supervisor Baden,
Yes.
can I ask Mr. Fry a question?
Certainly.
Thank you so much. Jeff, you and I took that ride up Mount Laurel Road.
Yes,
What are we gonna do? Because the ditch is twice as deep now.
they were
Along
working
the-
there today.
They were.
Yep. We
Okay.
started today. Actually started yesterday afternoon.
Can I
They were
ask
there
what the
today.
game plan is?
Well, I'm gonna fill a majority of that in first. And then reapply the ditch, so it's not quite so deep, it's a little bit wider. But the ditch won't be so deep, so the water will still have a place to go, but of course, we'll have more road to drive on.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, when it washed it out, it just, you know, it took a lot of the road out, as we saw that day. So we're putting the road back in where it belongs, and then putting a ditch back in.
You think
where it
there'll
belongs.
be room for almost 2 cars?
Probably not, unfortunately. It's just not possible. It'll be absolutely safe for 1 car, because this really wasn't totally safe for 1 car the day you and I were there. But it will definitely be safe for 1 car, but not for 2.
How are you gonna get it plowed this winter?
Oh, the same way we always do. I mean, I have a guy that goes all the way to the
Small
end.
plow truck.
Nope, big plow truck. He goes down in there with a big one. Gets turned around, comes back
I
out.
know, I've met him,
Yeah,
but I just wondered what the plan was for this winter after putting the new ditch in, if you. do
yeah,
the
he won't,
smaller-
that won't affect what he's doing. He won't, you know, basically it'll be helping him because he'll have a little bit more road to ride on for that, so. And I appreciate us
Thank
taking
you.
that trip.
Thank you.
So that you could show me that, because that's not a road that I necessarily always drive on.
It's a tertiary road. It's a
Yes.
3rd-class road.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Supervisor's report has been filed with the town clerk for October. To report out the financials, the general fund took in revenue in October of $100,945.57. The highway fund took in revenue of $4,026.22. The expenditures paid out with abstract 10 of 2021 for general fund, $58,999.65. The highway fund is $90,687.07. The street lighting fund, there were no expenditures this month. The total expenditures for October 2021, general fund, is $116,486.07. The highway fund is $136,764.28, and the street lighting fund is $0. Monthly correspondence is in your packets. It is the group that is paper put together. I will, we received notice from the lawyers from our insurance company, the lawsuit that was filed about an accident on the Kerhonkson School grounds. We were named in the lawsuit. They successfully had us removed from the lawsuit as we have no control over the school property, no involvement with the school. So we were removed from that. There is a letter from the Department of Public Service that is talking about broadband. Again, we said it previously, but there is a broadband survey out that is available online through the New York State Department of Public Service. They are trying to gather information that they will then supply to the results of that information sometime in 2022. This is in reaction to the governor determining that they believe that 98% of the state is covered with broadband. And as we all know, in the town of Rochester, we don't even come close to fitting that category.
Are all the residents of the town going to get that in a mailing or something? So they can respond?
This is just a letter telling them where to go. We posted it on the website already.
What if people don't? What if they don't have broadband?
If the board wants to approve the cost of a mailing, we can do it. That's up to the board, but let's take that up later at this meeting rather than in the middle of this report, please. We can do that if you would like. There is a sizable cost. What is it? What is our tax?
I would recommend actually
Postcards.
doing some sort of robocall, and those interested can come in and pick up a form, or that would be cheaper than.
And this has to be turned in when?
It's not turned in. It's an ongoing survey.
Could you do it with taxes?
Can we add a mailer in tax?
We do it all.
Okay, we'll do that. We also received notice from the County of Ulster Department of Social Services. This is about the home energy assistance program, which is open from October 1st till March 15th. And that is, if anyone is in need of heating assistance. It also is, if anybody has a heating emergency, they would call the sheriff's office, and they either forward it to the county vendor who is on staff, and if they don't get a response from them, the county supervisor gets the next call.
I have a question about this. It says fuel. Well, is that propane, kerosene, or number 2 fuel?
It is number 2 fuel. It is not propane.
What do you do if someone's out of propane then?
There's nothing that we can do.
No kerosene?
We can't put kerosene in a propane.
No, obviously not, but you can put kerosene in a number 2 fuel
And we
tank.
do. That is what we
That's
do.
what I'm asking.
That's what we do.
So
for
we can
emergency.
do kerosene
We put kerosene in, yes.
in a
to-
number 2 tank
in a number
because it
2
doesn't freeze
to
as
get them
fast as
through
number
the
2
the
fuel.
evening, yes. And I have gone out many times with 5 gallons of kerosene.
Yeah,
and
no,
put
that's
it
what
in
I'm
Many
asking.
people's,
That's the first thing you did your first year. isn't it?
the first day I got sworn in, that afternoon, I got my first phone call and did it that afternoon. We received a reminder note from Central Hudson, just about vegetation management. They are doing tree trimming in the area. They're working in the Marbletown, Cripple Bush area. They have done some in the Algerville area. There is a list in there of the free section, which Councilwoman Anawan put together. And thank you, Jeff and Aaron, for making that happen. We reopened that. It has been very popular. We have a number of volunteers who are helping us staff it. And there's a resolution in the agenda to a woman who is volunteering and offering to be the coordinator of the volunteers, and I'll be bringing that.
Okay, my question to you is this, it's the same thing I said when it was brought up online. Are they covered under town insurance?
They are indeed. I spoke with our insurance agent. They are covered as volunteers, the same way as all our recreation volunteers, and I would not have started it without his okay. Next is the agenda from the Association of Town Supervisors and Mayors. You will see on there the countywide ambulance service was a great topic of discussion. The next page that is there was the county EMS coordinator gave a very in-depth discussion of county EMS. There are a number of town supervisors who are requesting that the county look at taking over EMS, managing it to help alleviate each municipality having to address contracts with either volunteer agencies or professional agencies. A very real world example of the town of Saugerties has a contract with Diaz where they have 2 ambulances 24/7. They've determined they need a third one. The cost of that is $600,000 for one ambulance. That's just for the ambulance and the equipment. So their ambulance coverage now in the town of Saugerties is costing the town $1.3 million. So a number of supervisors have approached the county executive staff with looking at how to better get this under control with each municipality doing their own contracts with their own agencies and looking at the county to coordinate it better. Recreation Department is holding a holiday coat drive. Those bins over there. They are collecting from November 8th till November 19th, but they've already started collecting. All donations must be clean and in decent condition. And then once they are dropped off, the staff is going to have a day in December. I don't know if you've asked to set the date yet. I don't believe the date has been set yet. It will be announced where people can come, go through them and take what they need. Most of the correspondence is various emails received from town residents. The COVID report, we currently in the town of Rochester, we are down to 4 active cases, significant drop from last month. Sadly, there have been 6 deaths from COVID in the town of Rochester. The county as a whole has had 19,455 confirmed cases. They have currently active. This is as of 11/4, as of today, actually. 246 active cases. We've had 291 fatalities in Ulster County. They report from vaccination, the population 18%, at least 1 dose is at 83.6%. At least one vaccine dose for the entire population is 73%. And the completed vaccine dose series is at 66.7%. And those numbers are from the county. Algerville Firehouse, the walls are now up in the new section. The concrete has been poured in them. The Actually, the trusses may have arrived today. I believe they were coming today. They will be starting on installing the trusses and the beams probably next week. We're still very much on schedule for completion next. We have bi-monthly meetings. Every other Wednesday, we meet with all the contractors, the fire district, the town, the people from the state. And Alfondre Architecture is doing a very good job of managing the project. Town Park Playground, I already announced that, is starting tomorrow morning. So any other updates? B, we'll start with you.
The one judge at the court is holding hearings when she wishes, making it difficult for the constables to get coverage. And the other judge adheres to the normal schedule, which is easier to do. I understand that they can set the timeframes that they want, and that's okay. Both clerks are at work, doing the best they can, and that's all I have to report.
Not at this time.
Constabulary report. Constable Miller sent in that they answered 26 direct calls for service in October. 18 were neighbor to neighbor and quality of life complaints. 6 were residential traffic complaints, Main Street, Rochester Center, Whitfield Road, Lower Whitfield Road, Metacox, Clay Hill, and Sampsonville. 2 environmental complaints, 1 on Wood Road, 1 on Kaiser Egg Road, 5 new building department violations. There were 0 court cases open, 9 court proceedings remain open, and 2 court proceedings were closed. Interesting occurrences. We continue to be a busy month. It was an honor to participate in the town's Heritage Day festivals. Everyone involved did a spectacular job. The constables assisted the Ulster County Sheriff's Office and Athcord Fire District with traffic control at an accident on Route 209. During the service of papers to the local mobile home park, Constable Cathcart had an older individual nearly pass out in front of them. They managed to contact 911 and call for an ambulance. They stayed with the individual, kept him talking and engaged while he was awaited medical assistance to arrive. He became quite vocal and visibly agitated. Once they arrived, he was escorted to the ambulance. At their request, the constables followed to the hospital. Later in that week, Constable Miller checked in on the individual and he was doing much better. Garbage complaints have increased yet again, and on individual and traffic along town roads and residents' properties. In particular, speed complaints are the most common this month. Neighbor-to-neighbor complaints have stayed constant this month. The constabulary participated in the recreation department's trunk or treat event and got to hand out flyers and distribute some sweet treats to the kids and to some adults during the event. During the COVID-19 pandemic and the rise of its variants, they continue to have limited direct contact with complainants and proportional increase in direct phone calls. Chief Miller.
Yes.
No, again, Recreation Department has a holiday event coming up.
Yeah,
with,
there's
details to follow.
they're doing we're doing a drive through Thanksgiving luncheon on the 19th from 11 to 1.
They had a pumpkin carving.
Yep, they had the pumpkin carving the Thursday before Halloween. It was, how many participants? 12 participants. The Friday before Halloween was a very successful drive-through Halloween that started at the museum, went through the firehouse, came here, went around by the town hall, and want to thank the court clerks, the highway department, the town clerk's office, the Paddock family who jumped in there and had a station,
Jamie Matt.
the recreation department, the fire district, and the Friends of Historic Rochester. Those were the stops, and our constabulary started by handing people a map and handing them. So thank you all. Another very successful project. Not quite as many cars as last year, but I suspect because it was more probably in-person trick or treating, we may not have had as many as last year, but still a very popular event. And also our recreation department is going to be doing, and I don't remember the date, a holiday wreath making.
November 30th.
Yep, the 30th. Thank you.
30th, 1 p.m.
Okay. They had originally proposed that as being a participants paying. I suggested to them that the town had it in their recreation department budget. The cost will be less than $100, and we will fund that out of the recreation department budget. So it will be free to all who participate.
The first class is already fully booked, so they're doing a second class.
That's great.
And that
Two
was just today.
spots open.
Yeah, so it's wildly successful, and I believe,
They also did a virtual
yeah.
Halloween costume.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. A virtual Halloween costume contest, which we did last year. We did not have as many entries, but we did have quite a few. And we gave 3 awards out to the best costume, the cutest costume, and what was the most creative. And the winners of that got, I believe, a gift certificate. So Ashley and Bethany continue to brainstorm and come up with great ideas. Erin.
Yes, thank you, Mike. So I think in a record, perhaps, the Zoning Board of Appeals has at least 3 ongoing applications for variances, which is a nice amount for that board. One ongoing area variance that has close to the high water line. They're seeking a variance from that. Another where a lot line is running through a cabin, so that one's interesting. And then they have a new application for a front yard fence variance, and which I just wanted to add that our current zoning, the proposal from the zoning review committee includes raising that up because there are lots of people who seek variances for that. So I was very excited to see 3 agenda items. And then the transfer station, what I wanted to mention about the transfer station is we have reopened the free section, and that it's still, I think, a work in progress. I would like to appeal to anyone who feels passionate about the free section to offer to volunteer if you are able to help us manage that, because there is a little bit of confusion as to where the staff should be in that and where the volunteers should be. So I think that's something we can work on clarifying for them. And maybe we should talk about that, Jeff. But I would like to put that out there, and I think we might even try to do a once-a-month meeting with any of those volunteers, so we can work on how we want to run that and trainings for keeping it efficient. So I just wanted to put that out there.
My dad's very happy it's reopened. My mother's not, because he keeps bringing stuff home.
And just for the public, anyone watching or anyone in there, all items being left need to be approved. So part of the issue is things get left that are actually garbage, and then the town is paying, taxpayers are paying for that. So that's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to keep it efficient. And so that's the reason why we are asking for all items to be inspected.
Okay, the assessor's report. Our new assessor, Jeremy Baraka, he's been out taking photos of properties that have been updated, recently renovated. It's all in a condition other than what we had it listed as. As part of this review, we'll also be destroying old outdated information in the property record folders. For senior citizen exemptions, disability exemptions, ag exemptions, renewals, they will be mailing out renewal applications at the beginning of November. All applications are due back to be returned back to the town by March 1st. It said 2021, but I know we meant 2022. New construction, he's reviewing the status of open building permits as an ongoing process. We'll be checking the status of construction and updating inventory and assessments as necessary. He will be on vacation from November 12th to the 19th. He was returning on Monday, November 22nd. Mike Dunham, our retired assessor, who has been filling in as the assessor's aide. His last day as the assessor's aide will be November 24th. And Jeremy recommends that we need to consider getting someone in as a clerk to assist with office administrative duties once that Mike is gone. The Historic Preservation Commission had a very successful Canal Day. About 40 participants showed up. There was a duo singing canal songs. That's how the day started. Sadly, we got rained out the original scheduled date, so it was moved to the second date. It was supposed to have started with an accordion parade from the museum to the park. That unfortunately had to be canceled because the people who were really participating were unable to attend due to another commitment, the second date. We had a great display of various materials showing what would have been carried on the canal. A great remembrance from Jack Schoonmaker, who showed it was either a bag from a salt delivery or a flour delivery, and I apologize, I don't remember, but he found it framed in the basement of his house, which is the house where his family has been living since the original settlers came. And it had the date and the name of who it was being delivered to. And in his recollection, the canal would have come along and basically it was like the post office. They stopped at that house and delivered it. Bill Merchant, who is the historian for the D&H Canal, gave a very, very interesting talk and pointed out that there were a large number of very young boys who were working the canal. As a matter of fact, they had a written diary of one they were three brothers from Honesdale, Pennsylvania, who decided they didn't want to do farming anymore. The oldest was 16, and he was the captain of the canal boat. His younger brother, who was 14, was the one who was steering the boat, and their younger brother, who was 10, was the first mate on that. And that particular canal boat was staffed by these three young gentlemen, and that often was the case in that time. Very interesting talk, and then that concluded with a walk along the rail trail, which is the majority of our rail trail is the exact footprint of the original canal. And so he led a group of about 12 or 15 people who made it all the way to Kerhonkson and then carpooled back. So a great event, and they plan to continue it in the future. Planning board stays very busy. I think Mr. Jones has left, but I believe the Cusack subdivision was approved, which was the subdivision that was up on Ridgeview Road. And they have a very full agenda continuing of many items. That's it. Town board member time. Does anybody have any issues or discussion items they would like to bring up?
I had one thing that I was supposed to bring up in my liaison report, which might be a discussion item, which is I was asked by a few members of the ZBA about our mask policy and whether we have an official one and whether we would consider one. And so that I just wanted to put that.
I was contacted by the chair of the ZBA about that. Our policy has been that unvaccinated people should be masked, but we are not checking whether people are or aren't. We are doing it similar to the way stores are, is that it is on the honor system. But at this time, we continue to make accommodations as best we can for social distancing. One member did ask if it can be done remotely. The answer to that is it can be done. It's somewhat up to the chair
Right.
because we are streaming these out on YouTube. We could give the member that ability to log into the Zoom and take part, but it would still put a lot of onus on the secretary or the chair or whoever is going to facilitate it. And actually, as of right now, that is only through January, is it 14th?
I don't remember the date off the top
The
of my
executive
head.
order was reinstituted for allowing governments to operate virtually until some date mid-January. I don't remember the exact date. So unless it's extended, that would not be an option again after January. So,
But that's for the entire meeting is virtual or the entire meeting
Correct.
is in person.
correct. But the board member still could, I believe, and I'd have to ask you for an opinion on that, Mary Lou. If one board member could come in virtually, as long as
Yeah.
it's being streamed out.
I'll look to
it's-
see if we can have hybrid meetings.
Yeah, I think that might
If you can
help
find out if that is allowed, that would
the
help.
situation.
But thank you for bringing it.
Mhm. Great, thank you.
Okay, we're at public comment time.
I just wanted to
Excuse
mention
me.
one thing.
Yep.
Go ahead, Pete.
I have three things I would like to mention.
Okay,
One is the comment about raising the escrow pricing for applicants to the planning board. One of the reasons that is happening is because Chairman Lindstrom stepped down, and I would like the public to know this. She, with the help of Clark Patterson Lee, I believe is the company we use, would write the decisions together. Thus, Clark Patterson Lee didn't have to take so much time, so the applicant was saved money. The current chair made a statement this evening saying he did not have the knowledge. Ms. Lindstrom made it her business to have the knowledge to write those decisions. So now people coming before the planning board will have to pay more money for the engineering firm because of her stepping down as chair. That's my first thing. Secondly, Mr. Baden's increase in pay. Mr. Beelan, having served on a town board, made a very, very good point. Knowing he was running for office, why did he want to take a 23% hike in pay? I can tell you, win, lose, or draw, and there are many people who can swear to this because I talked to them about it. I wouldn't have taken the raise. That's number two. Third, for a public announcement, I have a private email. And I want this whole town to know what happens to elected officials when they lose. They get bullied. They get bullying email. They get asked to step down. They get told they're too old to serve anymore and like Wayne Kelder should leave. Ladies and gentlemen, cancer didn't kill me. And whoever doesn't like me isn't going to kill me either. I'm here until the 31st of December, whether I don't care who likes it. And if this is my supposed tantrum that I'm supposed to throw this evening, then let it be a tantrum. But let me tell you, what doesn't break you just makes you stronger. And I don't feel bad about losing. I only lost by 183 votes, and that's goddamn close for this town. And don't anybody ever forget it. Something to say, Adam? Usually.
Is there a third thing?
That was
That
the
was-
third thing. Did you lose your count?
Yep. I would like to mention Woodstock Home Share again. I brought it up recently, but now during town board member time. It's a program by Family of Woodstock that I'm going to follow up with Susan. Oh, thank you. There's a program called Woodstock Home Share that Family of Woodstock puts out that I'm planning to contact Susan Goldman, and I'll read what it is. Home sharing is renting a room in one's home to someone for a lower than market rate. It's being successfully implemented in a number of places in the US. Woodstock's Town Housing Committee has endorsed this model as an excellent way to jumpstart implementing a range of housing options that Woodstockers can afford. Home sharing is a great solution for people who are cost burdened as homeowners, pressured by taxes and upkeep, and those renters who are cost burdened by the high cost of rentals. The process is careful and takes time to implement, but it has advantages that are both attractive to owners and renters. So I just wanted to let you know I'm looking into it.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Baden, one other thing I want to finish up with. Should I get another email like that? Or anything that's even close to that, I'm going to state police. I'm not going to tolerate being bullied.
Okay, I have no control over what somebody might have emailed you. so-
I know you don't, but I'm announcing it to the public, so everybody here in town knows what happens to officials, people who run for office and don't win, and then they're asked to step down.
We'll be opening public comment here. I'd ask that comments not be made about the budget. We've already had public hearing on the budget. So if anybody would like to comment on any other topics tonight, be accepted now. Yes, please, Carol.
I have a question on the flag, Pledge of Allegiance. On the town meetings like planning board, the town board, CBA and all that. Well, my question is, it should be addressed at every meeting, right? I mean, say the pledge at every meeting.
It's the chair of the meeting sets the agenda. I believe they are, but I don't know if they are or aren't. So.
Well, I've been to the ZBA meetings and the 2 or 3 people on the board have said, what about the Pledge of Allegiance? And it's like ignored.
Okay.
Is there a ruling on that, Mary?
I don't know that it's required. I know that some towns do it, some don't, but I will look and see if there's a requirement in state law. I know that the flag does have to be displayed, but I don't know if the pledge is required, but I'll definitely look that up. for you.
And this is the first anyone has brought it to my attention. So yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, in the back, please.
There's an issue with a member of the Board of Ethics, and I was told it was going to be on the agenda tonight. Is that correct?
It is not on the agenda tonight. Yes, please. Anna.
I'd like to make a few points. One, congratulations to all those running in this year's election, and of course, special congratulations to the winners. Two, with the election behind us, there may be hopefully a new perspective in solving some issues without fear of antagonizing certain voters. Three, when running for office, we all say we are going to listen to the people. Now I'm trying to figure out how this listening works in our case regarding the new yearly and 5 times increased fire inspection fee, which was wrongfully applied to our building. As we wrote a letter to the town board on June 28, 2021. I came to all town board meetings as of August, and I spoke about it. I provided documents by email to Supervisor Baden. I really do not understand what else we have to do to solve this issue. Maybe a letter to the editor to bring awareness regarding the issue and indicate how many months it takes to solve a minor problem, which is about respecting and correctly applying town laws and decisions. 4, I'm sorry I get to say again something I said back in 2007 before being elected to the town board, and which I hoped I was not going to feel and say again, if you cannot trust your government with the little things, how can you trust it with major issues? So I'm not ashamed to sound like a broken record about the fire inspection issue. To summarize, our issue is very simple. A, our building is basically not only commercial building, but a residential commercial one. The planning board decision for mixed use from December 2010 exists, was provided, and it's not our fault that it was not conveyed to the CEO's office in more than 10 years. B, the rules established by the town board at the January 4th, 2021 organizational meeting regarding the frequency of the fire inspections are extremely clear. Establishments, quote, meant for public assembly for less than 50 persons, end of quote, as ours, should have the fire inspection every 2 years. The quote is from the minutes. This rule was misinterpreted in our case. The fire inspector wrongfully divided the entire side of the building by 15, telling me that we are allowed to have actually 160 persons basically in our house, instead of considering what the town board clearly indicates, meant for public assembly for less than 50 persons. So we request that the old frequency of every 2 years and fee $50 be grandfathered in our case. Hopefully the current town board can solve this before years end. Thank you.
I'd like to address the comments about the county ambulance system that Supervisor Baden referenced. If there is a countywide ambulance system, there'll be no problem getting an ambulance if you're in New Paltz, Kingston. Folks in the town of Rochester will be forgotten and will not get a local ambulance responding. Some of the eye-popping numbers referenced by the supervisor pertain to costs and other costs. In the town of Rochester, and I believe that cost was $600,000 for a single ambulance. In the town of Rochester, we're fortunate that with their squad and its dedicated volunteers, we can operate 2 ambulances on a 24/7, 365 basis. Our ask for next year in funding is only $193,000. That will also be split with the town of Warsaw. That's a substantial cost savings to taxpayers. And we're going to get to you a lot faster than a countywide ambulance can.
Yes, in the back, please.
I have 2 things. The first thing is my child goes to school and bullies somebody, they're suspended from school and they pay a price. If somebody's bullying one of your councilwomen, she's still in office, the town board should take action on the person who bullied her. It should not be accepted, whoever the case may be. If she can provide the emails, action should be taken against that person and they should be removed from office because that person bullies one of their own members, they're gonna bully town residents. They're gonna bully everybody else. And it's unacceptable as a resident of this town to know that one of my town board members is bullying another town board.
No,
member.
it wasn't a
Can I
town board
clarify?
member.
Okay.
It was a
Thank
citizen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Citizen.
Thank you.
I'll
Which we have
clarify.
no control.
It's a
Which road?
citizen.
The
sir.
other thing I
It's a
have
citizen.
is, are we gonna talk about skate time 2 on I tonight? Because I was told that was gonna be on the agenda. Or are we
I'm
gonna wait until December 8th after the vote to discuss
I'm
it?
not sure why it was not on the agenda tonight.
You're not sure why it was. not
No,
on?
I said, I'm not sure why, who told me it was on the agenda. It's not on the agenda. There's nothing to have on the agenda tonight. So,
And, and just another statement, I came to the meeting last week, I walked to this door, there was not a chair here. You sat there and went like this to us, so we left because we thought it was a private meeting, so I left.
Last meeting, I was here at half hour before the meeting. I was here with the bills. I set up, I saw your comment on Facebook. I don't remember doing that. I don't think I did that. And we didn't have a conversation. I don't know, but it was a public meeting just like every other meeting is.
So when will the state time meeting be so that we can come back to it? Because we're all here for the same thing and it keeps getting brushed off and not spoken about.
We are in the process. We have signed a contract to do the phase one as was required. That is being conducted. We will have those answers back on the 19th. At the last meeting, the board voted to do an inspection of the facility. The referendum is December 7th. If the referendum fails, the project is done. There also, if the inspection has issues, the project can be revisited. If the environmental has issues, the project can be revisited. It can either be renegotiated or it can be ended. So
Can I ask one more thing?
certainly,
What personal do you gain out of this since they're also in the movie business as you are?
I gain zero personal. There is no connection between me personally and skate time. We may work in the same business,
So
but
why can't we use the building we already have and renovate it with the grant that we already have, or a quarter of the money that it's gonna cost us to fix that one?
this is one option. The voters, taking it to the voters, the board felt that it was the best option. If the voters voted down, it's done. So anybody who is opposed to this idea should vote no. That is, this is not meant to be a question and answer session. This is public comment. So if anybody has a comment to make, if not, we have a very full agenda tonight.
Our comments have been asking for answers all night, you never give them.
Because public comment is not a question and answer session now. It is. Ms. Avery.
I offered to do open houses at all the places in question, the town hall, the courthouse, here, and you never got back to me. That's my comment. Why not?
A statement, not a question.
Fair enough.
With regards to the inspection, last meeting, you said those inspections will not be made known to the public. Be aware of that. Those inspections are being used to, yes, you did. I
What
sat
was
here-
said was that on the phase one,
No, I'm not
if
talking about
we
phase
turn
one.
it down because the phase one
Hold
comes
on,
back bad,
hold on.
we're
This isn't a
under
question and
contract.
answer. I'm not asking a question. I'm making a statement,
Okay, fair enough.
right? I'm making a statement.
Fair enough.
Okay, if I'm allowed to ask a question, I'll ask a lot of questions.
Okay, fair enough. Make your statement, please.
I will. Thank you for the permission. It was stated by you that any inspections that are conducted will not be made public knowledge. The reason for that is to protect the seller in the event that the seller recognizes these problems and doesn't get hammered with the sale in the future. Those were your exact words, and that board sat there and watched you do it. And they all sat there and said, oh yeah.
No, they didn't.
Except for one person. Obviously, being who I am, and anybody that knows me, we know who that other person was. That's
His
a
mom.
statement. A lawyer should know that. That does.
Any other statement? Comments, please? Yes, sir.
Al Babcock. This is not because of the statements made relative to the budget, but it certainly has come to my mind, and as indicated during that time, other people are curious. It was brought up about justifying your raise. And I had that same question. Do you intend to justify that in some way? Or do you intend to tell us your justification? And I would also ask the board if, I would ask if the vote on the board toward that raise, if there was a vote taken, how that came out, each member.
And if the board, if that vote was taken, will, with the existing board, give us the rationale for approving that rates.
Fish. About 4 or 5 months ago, issue about a light up there at the corner of Lyon and Kennedy Street. I have not heard nothing about that. And I also asked you about price of lawnmower tires at the dump. I have not heard anything from that.
Okay, regarding the light, I contacted Central Hudson. They have not gotten back to me yet with whether that project can be done or not. So I'm waiting for them to answer me. They have to do it. I do apologize about the lawnmower tires. I will follow up on it. Yes.
I'd like to talk about the watershed. It says that September 29, 2021, there was resolution 288. I don't know if you could read that to me. It's about phase 2 of the watershed education. Because it's not on the minutes, I'm not anybody, but the minutes aren't available. That was a workshop meeting, that resolution was put in. I'm very well aware of this area. Met some people that live there. When Borrego was putting in the berm. And I went to visit these people and I found a very hazardous situation with on the property line, and it had pegs in the ground, and it's a trip hazard. And if anybody knows you, you might know that I haven't been able to breathe right for 4 years because I fell on a tree. And I fractured my chest. I still suffer. That bothered me a lot. I told them that they needed to call Mr. Baden and their landlord, which they did. Now, this berm has never been maintained. This has been talked about before I go deal. Now I get to my point, the watershed education part. We did this in phases again. This is a park that only has one way in, okay? And no one has wanted to call it a park. We're doing it in phases. The last thing we were gonna plant trees. Only I emailed, I got the email from the ECC, and what they did was talk about creating a permanent trail, a loop down to the creek, which I could send to the board. Okay, but again, there was no permission for chainsaws, chippers, the general public. You could use a chainsaw. They said, come on down, have some fun. We're making a park. They're making history. Well, we don't have a park, but we're going to create one, which you already did, right? Okay, because you were there October 1st. But we didn't do that. Now I'm going to get to what really concerns me about this park. One of my best friends on October 20th of 2013 with staff on a nature trail, exactly the one like you're creating. She jogged on that park. It was in her neighborhood. It was cut through the trees like you want to do with this one. It was narrow. It was beautiful. She jogged there every day. It was in a community park where the Little League was, but this was by the creek. She had an iPad on. She was stabbed 26 times. This has changed my life because of our relationship and things that happened with her family and what happened in that town, Sylvan Township, Westerville, Ohio. This made national news. They changed laws. But the town board had to tear down that nature trail. They had to open up those paths to make it safe. And then they had to make a memorial park for a woman that was killed. This is not a good idea. It is not access to that. We talked about how many people got hurt. State parks have rangers. Okay, we've got nothing down there. It's a dirt road that will put dust on those panels. I'm sorry, folks, it's the ugliest driveway I've seen in town, next to storage unit. You already asked for a grant for this park. Same grant, you're gonna ask for again tonight. Except the first time you asked for the grant, you said it was for a kiosk. It wasn't for a kiosk. It was for a virtual tour for something that was already created. What I'm trying to tell you is, I believe this is deceptive, the way it's gone about it, these spaces. I think that's part of the reason why people are so pissed off about skate park, because you don't tell us shit. But the ECC went down there, they cut trails. It was Andrew Faust supposed to be planting trees. That is not what happened. The ECC went down there and they scared children by flying drones. They went over people's properties and they talked about it in their Zoom meeting. Who authorized this? I don't get it, folks. Okay, I'm a saving freak. And I mean it. You can ask anybody that knows me. I get mad if my wife loses shoes in the walk path. This trail there. It's the wrong place. We've got trees all over town. We've got other parks. We can identify trees at the rail trail, which is safer, but it's still not safe. Let's not forget we had a meth lab there on our rail trail. And guess what? During COVID, one of the guys that was installing the solar panels was living down there at that park. But I don't think any of you knew that. But the sheriff did get a tip from a concerned citizen. So I get it. Somebody wants to create a park on our town property. But you know what? You neglected to tell the public. And now you're going to vote on it tonight. And you're going to ask for another grant in the same place that you lied about the other one from. Me, I hate deceit. I really can't stand it, folks. I'm tired of me not really telling the truth. We're here for a reason. And Mike, 1 year ago, you talked about the server not being secure. I got a message on my phone yesterday. I could not get this agenda. And my phone told me that your certificate for your website had expired and it was down and not secure. You promised this a year ago. Get an email, sir. In the budget. I know the line item. You didn't do it. Did you? Email server. Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay.
Oh, I have written an email, I'm sorry. So I forwarded the board letter submitted to me at 3:30 today. The first half of the letter was just for the board, but the last page was asked to be read out loud for the record. On a more positive note, congratulations to Mr. Hewitt on his new position. I know you will work hard and do good for the town of Rochester on a county level. Congratulations to Mr. Baden on a well-deserved win. We should be so lucky to have him for our supervisor. Someone who is qualified, knows what they're doing, and is bringing the town of Rochester into the next century. Someone who also does a full job for a part-time salary. Let it known that Mr. Baden's raise in the new budget will cost the taxpayers 10 cents a month. And the proposed purchase of skate time will cost the homeowner of an assessed value of $275,000, only $35 a year. And Councilwoman Depew complains that the taxpayer cannot afford it. She stated this knowing the town taxes are going down over 2%. Ridiculous. Thank you for your time and attention, Barbara Fennell.
Whoa, whoa. You just let the town board read the exact email that my mother was bullied with. Now you're culpable. You're absolutely.
You're culpable.
Take action. Immediately.
Do something,
And number two. that-
or I'm leaving. I have the exact email.
Town leave. Brought up
Yeah.
on a referendum.
Will you let Kate?
I will not, I'll talk to you tomorrow. You just opened up a can of worms that you're never gonna forget. And this isn't a tantrum. This is a legal issue, Mary Lou, a legal issue.
You know it.
I didn't identify anyone.
That's correct.
Anyone. I was very cautious not to identify who the bully was. Not go in town of Rochester.
This person submitted this letter to be wished to have it.
That's
read
why
on
she
the
wanted
record.
it read. That's
exactly
correct.
why.
Why it was all done.
That's why it was done.
You need to
But
take
now
action.
I'm getting an attorney.
What is set up?
It was
Oh my
really
God.
dirty. Don't look at him. Don't look like you don't understand. I didn't give up anyone's name when I said what I
And
said.
you should have at least read the paperwork before you started the meeting. And that's a statement, not a question.
You've had the best you're ever gonna get from me, the very best.
That's
And if
rude.
your bullies don't stop trying to beat me up, I will take more action.
I'm like them, I'm not leaving either.
I am, because now that the person has been identified by someone else, I'm in fear of my life. Let's everyone hear that. I am afraid now. I came to this meeting a little leery, but I was okay. Now I'm afraid.
Oh my God.
Understand this. You have just put a public official in fear. Just because I ran against you.
I had nothing to do with Kate reading that
You should have
letter.
read it
You
beforehand.
should have read it first.
Maybe you would have stopped
Let's
it.
go. I'll take you with me.
I gotta leave because I
I don't think-
can't.
I think you should sit in the back of the room with the rest of us.
Get back in here with us, Pete.
Tomorrow.
Get back here with
On the other
us.
side. You're gonna stay.
Yeah, I got it.
Stay here.
We're staying, I'll stay with you, but I'm not too impressed.
That's on Zoom too, so the public can now see it.
Yes, that is on Zoom and it better stay on Zoom. And it better be heard.
Nothing is,
Heard.
Not like the other stuff that disappears.
nothing has ever disappeared.
Ha.
Oh.
Wow. Would the board like to take anything up, or would you like to just adjourn the meeting tonight? Because I don't.
Oh, and by the by, that was my tantrum, me being in fear of my life. I hope you all enjoy it.
I would think in light of
Well,
events.
there are important resolutions.
I know.
too, So I think we should continue.
They're important, but they'll pass with no one giving them up, no one saying no.
What does the board want to do? Do you want to reschedule this for another night?
Oh, yeah.
I don't see anything threatening in this letter. It makes it very clear.
You want to confer with our attorney?
On the letter?
You can't face it. You can't face it.
Well,
What
we
we
could
should be
have
doing moving forward.
We
Like I
could
said,
have
I'm-
We can continue the meeting, but it's, yeah, so, okay. Are you ready?
Well, you could do,
May I ask the public to allow us to continue the meeting? If you're going to talk, please go outside. Thank you. Kate, I didn't have the resolution number that we adopted last October, last meeting, excuse me. So the recommended, this is amending the resolution for the payment of the highway abstract at the last meeting. The recommended resolution is the town board amends resolution number, and you'll have to fill in the number, and approves the payment of highway fund abstract 10/2021 in the amount of, there was a mistake in the vouchers that was caught in entering it into the computer. So the amount should have read $90,687.07. So I'd ask for that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And Mike, you're saying that was the total that
That
was
is the
on the
total.
abstract?
Yes,
Oh, I see.
that is the amount that the abstract should have read. We adopted at the last meeting a resolution to pay a different amount because there was a mistake that was caught in entering the highway into the computer system. And it was corrected, and this is the corrected amount. So
Okay.
doing a resolution to amend the resolution we did last week, which was the payment of the vouchers. So Kate can fill in the appropriate resolution number. And the amount is $90,687.07.
Okay.
Have a motion? Do I have a
We did,
second?
yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Action on the minutes. Town of Rochester Town Board accepts the minutes of the October 7th, 2021 regular meeting, the October 11th, 2021 budget workshop meeting, the October 20th, 2021 budget workshop meeting, October 26th, 2021 budget workshop meeting, and the October 28th, 2021 audit workshop meeting. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or amendments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay, acceptance of donations, and I have an addition to make that just came in today. The Town of Rochester Town Board accepts donations of $124.17 from St. Pauli's Textile Incorporated, $73 in various cash donations from the Heritage Day Pine Contest, and $300 from the Rochester Residents Association in their annual donation toward Thanksgiving.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, or any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Appointment of employment, recommended resolution, whereas the Town of Rochester Town Board has been supplied with a certification of eligibles by the Ulster County Personnel Department for the position of zoning coordinator dated October 4th, 2021, which contains, actually should say, 2 eligible names. Therefore, the Town of Rochester Town Board resolves to the hiring of Alyssa Farrell to the position of zoning coordinator effective October 31st, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second.
Second.
To clarify, she is provisional right
Right.
now. She completed the test. She scored the highest score on the test. This is removing the provisional from her title. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Reappointment to the Board of Assessment Review. The Town of Rochester Town Board appoints Margaret Bonner to the Board of Assessment Review for a term to end September 30th, 2026. Subject to training requirements, I request the town clerk notify her of the oath of office requirements.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Appointment to the Recreation Commission. The Town of Rochester Town Board appoints Tina Bergen Russell to the Recreation Commission for a term to end December 31, 2023, and requests the town clerk notify her of the oath of office requirements.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I think, Mary Lou, this will help us to balance it out a little bit. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Appointment to volunteer coordinator, transfer station recycling. Recommended resolution, the Town of Rochester Town Board appoints Tina Bergen Russell to unpaid position of volunteer coordinator, transfer station recycling.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
There's nothing maybe going on. I don't know.
Oh, well.
All those in favor? We can vote on this one. We just first and second.
No, yeah, I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
Do we want to take a recess?
There's an EMT out there. There's nothing any of us are gonna do that he's not already doing.
You want to take 5 minutes?
It's already
I know.
almost 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I don't need five.
No?
Let's just take 5.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure everything's okay. Yeah.
Is there a need of some- Yeah, Chris, did you?
Do you want me to go?
Yes.
I'll go with Kate.
Yeah, I.
Is there something going on for real or?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I came
Wait,
in and
empty
asked
that
the
one.
EMT to go out.
Oh, they did? I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So
I didn't hear that.
Good. How you doing?
it's, we're still in public meeting, please, Stephen. It's not, we're not in a recess. We just stopped for a brief moment, so it's not
Okay.
appropriate to.
I'll catch up with you right after. Okay.
Thank you.
My job and making sure somebody is okay.
We're okay. We're fine.
If somebody needed medical attention, we just wanted to know. That's all I'm asking.
You're following what you told to do, but unfortunately, you're being misdirected in this way.
I'll wait for Chris to get back.
Wait for the report.
I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna rest on that, so I can take it off.
Well, yeah, we didn't actually take a recess.
Oh, we didn't vote on it.
Please do.
Is everybody okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
About that. Let's just stay in.
Right, because
meeting.
we're still in.
We're still in meeting. Let's
They
not.
didn't
I thought they
actually
just
vote
said
to
yes.
recess.
No, I
No.
thought they said 5 minutes. just now.
No, they
They're taking a
did it
bath.
on their own, and I'm waiting till I have, because I right now don't have a quorum, so I can't continue the meeting.
Going to have anything for Veterans Day?
Yes, we are.
11.
Oh, let's wait for him. Actually, well, we have.
I think you could probably link some of these into both.
Well, let's wait for Aaron.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, absolutely.
Did you go outside, Kate?
Yeah.
What is it?
We're still at.
Oh, thank you. I thought Aaron was outside.
All right.
Okay, advertising for vacancies on boards and commissions. Town board authorizes the supervisor to publish an advertisement in the Shanghai Journal seeking interested volunteers for various boards and commission vacancies beginning in 2022. Planning board, 1 member, zoning board of appeals, 1 member, historic preservation commission, 4 members. Recreation commission, ethics board, 1 member. Applications shall consist of a letter of interest for the position, including either a resume or experience and qualification statement. The supervisor will contact those members whose terms have expired to request letters of interest for reappointment. Any current member seeking reappointment has the opportunity to be interviewed, but it will not be required. Motion,
I'll make the motion.
that was second.
Second.
The Recreation Commission, we will find out because our current resolution says not less than 5 members. But we did, when we changed it from youth to recreation, Mary Lou, as she pointed out tonight, it says no less than 5, but more than 7. So we probably need to redo that Recreation Commission resolution and maybe even consider making it a local law. clarifying with Mary Lou how to do it. But in the meantime, we'll just advertise it with not saying how many members. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Recommendation to the Ulster County Legislature, the Town of Rochester Town Board recommends to the Ulster County Planning Department and the Ulster County Legislature the appointment of Michael Baden to serve as the Town of Rochester regular representative and Aaron Anowen to serve as the alternate representative. I should say to the Ulster County Planning Board, which I forgot to put in there, sorry. For the term ending December 31st, 2025.
Should we split that so that, because
We can vote on it.
Mhm.
It's an appointment. It's not there's no stipend involved. You're not required to recuse from voting on your own appointment. There's no financial implications. So. Unless you don't want to. I'm comfortable voting on it. So
Okay.
if you want to abstain,
You know
that's
what?
I was gonna say we could split it.
I could, but I don't have a problem voting on it.
I would suggest that you do it separately because it involves you. So do one to appoint you and one to appoint Aaron as the alternate. And then you
Okay,
guys
so
can.
I'd like
recuse
to
and
make a
we'll have
motion.
Yeah, I'll just reword it. So the Town of Rochester Town Board recommends to the Ulster County Planning Department and the Ulster County Legislature the appointment of Michael Baden to serve as Town of Rochester regular representative for the Ulster County Planning Board for the term ending December 31, 2025. I'll be recusing myself.
Okay, I'll make that
Abstaining.
motion.
I'm not
Second.
recusing, I'm abstaining.
Second.
All in
You're the
favor?
Deputy clerks.
I can still call it. I'm just
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
abstaining. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm abstaining. Okay, next resolution. The Town of Rochester Town Board recommends to the Ulster County Planning Department and the Ulster County Legislature the appointment of Aaron Anowen serve as the alternate representative for the Ulster County Planning Board for the term ending December 31, 2025.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and abstained.
And I'm abstaining.
Chris, I'm gonna let you make this next resolution.
L now, right? Okay. Dedication of land for a neighborhood recreation area.
It's just for it's your, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Whereas the Town of Rochester owns property located at 6140 US Route 209, Kerhonkson, New York, known as SBL 76.1-3-17, containing 67.156 acres. And whereas 33.07 acres of the property is currently under long-term lease for community solar and a cellular tower. And whereas there exists in the rear portion of the property an area identified as having 34.08 acres in which the Millbrook flows. And whereas the Town of Rochester Town Board with Resolution 87-2020 authorized contract, I added certain things. So you'll see edits. It's Center for Bioregional Living LLC to complete proposed scope of Phase 1 work to the 34-acre town land located at 6140 Route 209, Kerhonkson, New York, 12446. This phase included the research of species on the property, layout for trails. I'll give you the edits, Kate. Focus on rare locations of the property, assess needs of new plantings, signage, sitting and observation areas, steps or switchbacks, and parking. Furthermore, at the completion of Phase 1, maps and narrative were presented to the town board. And whereas on April 8th, 2021, Councilman Hewitt presented the Phase 1 report stating, quote, "This land has not been logged in over 80 years, and many of the hardwood trees are over 200 to 300 years old, a truly rare ecological asset for the town to appreciate, preserve, and protect," end quote. And also, quote, "The forest is a rare and exceptional, mostly deciduous hardwood mix with some particularly healthy specimen trees that will be highlighted in the trail system. Some of the white oaks are over 250 years in age." Close quote.
200 years. in
I
age.
changed it to 250.
Oh, the report said 200.
Okay, I'll keep it to the report. Thank you.
Copy from the report.
Close quote. And whereas the town board requested the supervisor send letters to bounding owners of the area notifying of a similar presentation by the Town of Rochester Environmental Commission on April 15th, 2021. And whereas on April 15th, 2021, the ECC and Councilman Hewitt made such presentation. And whereas on September 29th, 2021, with resolution 288-2021, the town board authorized contract with Center for Bioregional Living for Phase 2 of the Watershed Nature Trail.
The reason his name was in the resolution, that's why I worded it that way. So,
I don't make it like the best of Central Florida.
Good idea. Thank you.
okay.
And whereas section 241 of general municipal law allows for, quote, dedication or acquisition of land or buildings for playgrounds or neighborhood recreation centers, close quote. And whereas Councilman Hewitt recommends to the town board this area be preserved and protected and made available to all residents and groups of the town of Rochester as a self-guided walking nature trail that may be utilized by schools and other persons or groups for educational and recreational purposes. And therefore, with this resolution, the Town of Rochester Town Board designates this area as the Town of Rochester Watershed Nature Trail pursuant to section 241 of general municipal law. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion, questions?
I could address anything that was brought up today, but the phases are on track. The funding that we applied for last year from the Greenway did not come through, so we were denied by the state. So our next resolution is for a reapplication that they said last year it was a wonderful concept, but we weren't ready. So we're closer this year to where they think it's fundable.
I had one question.
There actually, I just noticed there is a typo. It should say nature.
I saw that.
You read it as nature.
My
Not
mistake.
nature.
I'm sure you've Borrego's been a proponent of this project. Any chance that driving up and down this road is going to cover solar panels and dust and prevent it from operating to its schedule?
That's a great point that I hadn't considered. And now Nexamp is the company that's handling our communication. They want to help us with wood chips, signage. And so they have a budget and they support this concept. I think they would take care of the dust as well.
I think if they had a problem with it, we would have heard from them. So,
They actually have commented that they think it's a good proposal and they would like to partner with us to make it happen. And that's been the unknown discussion from them.
And my one concern is the neighbors, of course. And so recent trail movements brought the trail away from the edges so that no houses can be seen as people walk in the forest. And the berm that was talked about, I reviewed it. Certain landowners have started landscaping the berm themselves. So there's vegetable gardens, ornamentals in some of the berms. And Nexamp's responsibility is to take care of each one. I talked about an idea of having a spreadsheet of what each neighbor would like their berm to be, so they can tell Nexamp what their desires are.
and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to get down there.
To clarify too, the adoption of this doesn't designate any funding in that direction. It is adopting a piece of land. This is under 241. The town has the ability to either acquire or designate land. This is land we already own. It is land that has really no other use to us. We certainly are not going to build something there. We've owned it for a long period of time.
Since 94.
This is an opportunity to utilize it for something. But again, this designation does not mean we are funding anything, does not mean by doing this designation, when we do apply for the grant, it will go a lot further as showing that we have designated this as a recreation area.
I just want to say, I appreciate the work that you've put into this, Councilman Hewitt. And I like the idea of having a park. However, I am not comfortable myself voting for this tonight given how I don't want the park to be contentious in our town. So I haven't spent a lot of time myself yet thinking about exactly what this means and does this make it public? You know, so I just want to, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just saying that I don't think I'm personally comfortable on voting on this particular resolution tonight.
Okay, any other questions or?
Would you like to discuss it further?
As it's only a designation of the property, I'm comfortable making the vote. I do feel bad though that you know, there are local people that you know, that do have problems with it. I think it's a very, as somebody who takes advantages of parks all over the country, it's hard to think of somebody having, you know, a hard time with the space. The one particular individual, my heart goes out to them. It really, really, truly does. I couldn't imagine, you know, their, particular situation. But I would think that, again, you know, in the macro, you know, of parks, I wouldn't believe that was a liability that anybody would go to parks or anybody would take time. Again, I'm comfortable making the vote tonight, although, again, my thoughts and prayers really do go out to the individual who expressed their strong feelings against it.
I think that because it's a newly read to the public, I agree with Erin, because there's questions. I'd love to hear more questions and feedback, and maybe we can wait for the next meeting, Mike, for a vote.
Okay, so you're gonna withdraw?
Yeah, I'll withdraw the resolution.
Okay.
Table.
Chris, I would be happy to work with you more on that aspect of it.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. You still want to apply for the grant because that
Yes.
is timely.
Yes.
So I think we should. So next resolution, Town of Rochester Town Board authorizes Councilman Hewitt to apply to the Hudson River Valley Greenway Community Grant Program for up to $10,000, providing matching funds required shall be limited to current expenditures and in-kind credits for a project for the Town of Rochester Nature Trail to include a welcome kiosk signage, trailblazers, and QR reader technology for a self-guided tour.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Is there a deadline for this? Like, what's the
November 8th.
funding? Oh, I guess, I mean, the funding scope.
Then they announce in mid to late December, and it's for funding in 2022.
So this is if,
Yeah.
then.
If
Like-
then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The
Okay.
match is required, but it does allow, and last time we had no problem with the in-kind alone, but and to clarify, there was a statement made that we have budgeted $100,000 for this. The entire parks budget is $15,000, I believe. And that includes the rail trail. I'm not sure where that number was identified from. So we have not committed any amount of money, to my knowledge, to this, other than what was approved with the phase 2 already. So
And last year we spent 2,500.
2,500. And the phase 2 was the purchase of the trees, which was just adopted in September.
And they're being planted this month.
Any other questions on the grant? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay, next, this is our annual request for a racing permit. The town of Board authorizes the racing permit renewal to Ackworth Speedway rated pursuant to Town of Rochester Code 107-4C and all other conditions as specified in Town of Rochester Code 107. Such permit is authorized only contingent upon presentation of the following proofs to the town prior to commencement of the 2022 racing schedule. Each year in Ulster County Health Department permit shall be required for all food concessions on the racetrack premises as a condition precedent to obtaining a permit from the town to operate said racetrack. The applicant shall provide proof of compliance with Ulster County Health Department regulations as they pertain to lavatories and septic facilities as a condition precedent to obtaining a permit from the town to operate said racetrack. Liability insurance, the permittee shall at all times maintain in full force and effect a public liability insurance policy in amounts not less than $1 million for damages in which the person is killed or injured per occurrence, and not less than $2 million for damages in which more than one person is killed or injured per occurrence. A certificate of insurance naming the town of Rochester as an additional insured must be filed with the town clerk at least 5 days prior to the first date of racetrack usage specified in the permit. Said certificate shall bear the name of the insurance company, the policy number, the term of the policy, the above specified amounts, and the name of the permittee's insurance agent. The permit shall deposit with the town clerk $1,000 for the town code enforcement officer's use in hiring an independent sound expert to perform sound measurements and issue reports to the town board and the code enforcement officer with respect to the permit holder's compliance with the noise requirements of this chapter. This amount is for one testing. Should additional testing be determined to be warranted for such said measurements, which will be taken 2 times during the racing season at the sole expense of the permit holder, an additional $1,000 shall be required at such time. Additional measurements have above 2 obtained by the town during the race season shall be at the sole expense of the town. The town board grants the supervisor the authority to review and certify these conditions have been complied with without further resolution. The town board further accepts the racing schedule as presented for 38 actual racing dates and 28 potential rain dates. Dates listed as rain dates may be utilized only to replace a rained out approved event date. The town board further states upon verification with the town code enforcement officer, there are no outstanding notices of violation issued by the town, and required sound testing for 2021 occurred. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion?
Mike, just the sound testing part, the $1,000, is
Yep.
that always in there?
Yep.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
They pay for the sound testing. The code enforcement does it at least once a year, twice if he determines it's necessary.
And it's at the expense.
And at the expense of the track. They fund the testing.
Gotcha.
And then if we determine that we need to do above 2, then we are responsible for any additional tests above 2.
I know we get a lot of letters about the sound, but have they ever had a violation this year?
The code enforcement informed me that the readings that he took in this year were lower than in 2019. Bear in mind that they did not operate in 2020. He said that they were lower, actually the direct quote was lower than several years, so. And they have an awful lot of rainouts, so they are scheduled for 38. They are allowed 40 race dates. 28 potential rain dates are backup dates that they supply us as, and I will tell you, Mr. Palmer constantly calls me to make sure that if he wants to reschedule, that it's on the schedule. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Discussion items. I put in your packet a letter from the Marbletown supervisor.
Yeah.
Which I will tell you, he called me also after this letter. And I've spoken with our attorney, and she can decide if she wants to talk about, if she can talk about this, or if she is able to. He is telling us that they cannot cover the area of the town of Rochester that is Marbletown First Aid, because Marbletown First Aid is now had Marbletown. The town of Marbletown is entirely covered by Marbletown First Aid. We have 2 agencies. We have Cox and Accord First Aid. We have Marbletown First Aid. You'll remember we had great discussions with them about the amount of funding. Marbletown had chosen to go to an improvement district, which is an ambulance improvement district. All the taxpayers of Marbletown will now pay so much per thousand to fund the Marbletown First Aid Unit. There also will be a oversight committee, and I may be using the wrong terminology for that. The town of Marbletown will have 3 representatives on that. There will be representatives of Marbletown First Aid. We have budgeted in our budget 5,000. Last year, we agreed to a contract with them, which goes until the end of January, the end of December, where we paid them $1,500. They are proposing that they need considerably more than what we are proposing. We also received, and thank you to the gentleman here from the Accord Fire, Crocs and Accord. Sorry, too many acronyms. That they have now moved toward a partial paid model, and I think that is a great thing. We did receive the letter that all their, as we requested, a 5-year plan, very, very detailed. It is too late for us to do an ambulance improvement district for 2022. We could not do it now. It just can't, it simply can't be done for 2022. Further down the agenda, I did put in, we have the ARPA money. I put in an EMS possibility. I'd like to float out the idea that we consider using some of that money to fund these 2 organizations, or if indeed, and with the board's permission, I'd like to ask the gentleman a question because he might be able to answer. So you said a resolution was adopted by the board about that area becoming part of PayFast. What's the next steps to memorialize that? Because the districts that we have show that that's Marbletown First Aid District.
And thank you, Supervisor, for the question. So the members are prepared to service that additional area. That does require, from our understanding, the consent of Marbletown, as well as further consents, potentially from a regional council or the State Department of Health. But we're committed to working with Marbletown and the town board to achieve whatever outcome is
So to
desirable for
redistrict,
them.
so you're looking to redistrict those 100 homes in that area.
Right.
Yes, the members voted to service that, if that is the wish.
Okay. Now, a question, and if you're not prepared to answer, I certainly understand. What does that mean in terms of response time to come from KFAS's headquarters to there? Because my understanding is that area was given to Marbletown because of proximity to their unit. So what would that do to response time?
I don't have an immediate answer for the
And,
response
yeah, and I
time.
understand.
I would also say too, that because we do have limited funds, if it's always paying Marbletown, there's only an incremental marginal cost for each additional household that we service. And if it's a question of just KFAS or Marbletown and KFAS, I think whatever we give to Marbletown, the squad could also acquire for $5,000 a year, an additional fly car. So we can respond to every call faster within the entire town.
Okay.
And those are political things. We welcome input on how to use that money, but we would say there's other investments to be made rather than just paying Marbletown.
Okay, fair enough. And if I could ask one more question, and I appreciate that you brought up the fly car because I know many of the smaller, many of the ambulance districts are moving toward that, which is for the board members who don't know what a fly car is, it's not a full ambulance, but it's to administer immediate aid. And then if an ambulance is required, then they can call. And please correct me if I'm saying anything wrong.
That's exactly right.
That's how I understand it. So it's more like another type of vehicle that perhaps just like a personal car, which it gets the people there quickly to administer the aid and then determine if additional needs are met. Because for that ambulance to roll, there's very strict requirements of who's on board and all that. So this speeds up and could that be utilized throughout the entire town if that were to be purchased?
It can, for the town lawyer's reference, it's called an emergency ambulance response vehicle, which is the official name in the statutes in part 800. But that could be used either responding directly on scene to calls for residences, or also now our we're structured so that when a volunteer gets a call, the volunteers drive to the station to pick up the ambulance. We could also have the fly car system where the fly car would be at a volunteer's residence so they can get to the station or an emergency scene using red lights and sirens and cut down on response time.
Okay. And back to the question about changing that district, is there a role that the town board either can play or must play in that process? Or are we just an interested observer, for lack of a better way to put it?
We welcome the input and help from the town board. I know the squad coming to servicing those additional parcels. There's probably several layers of approval. I don't have an immediate answer on what's involved in
Okay.
that. But we're happy to partner with the town
Okay.
on making that possible.
I'm not sure what's involved either. Right now, the way it is, that little part of the town is in the district that's been set forth for Marbletown. And Marbletown has a certificate of authority to do that part of town.
Right.
The county has asked the state to please give us an opinion, well, not us, a different town, an opinion, and give the county an opinion as to whether a certificate of authority means that the Marbletown Rescue must cover that area, or does it mean they're simply authorized to? They've been waiting for a while from the state. The state's trying to figure that out. I think this is coming up more and more, as you said, volunteers are hard to come by now. So I think it's coming up more and more, and the state's looking into that. So far as the letter you got from the supervisor of Marbletown saying, hey, you're not going to be able to use them there anymore, I really don't know whether that's true, whether they have to service it or not.
Right. Well, he has told me that their resolution in creating this taxing district forbids them from leaving the boundaries of Marbletown.
I don't know if they're allowed
And I
to do
don't know that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they are. I don't want
Yeah.
to say they did something they
Yeah.
can't do.
I'm just, my question is, how can one town board's resolution change a
Ambulance,
district
right,
that is not
exactly.
set by that town board?
So that's what
Yeah.
has been asked of the state of New York
Okay.
to opine, because it's their law
Okay.
and their certificates of authority.
Thinking ahead, because we have to adopt a budget coming up, and the likelihood of us getting an answer from the state in the real near
It's
future
not
is not gonna happen. So I think we should try to pursue this other, I'm just speaking out loud, please chime in, the rest of the board, pursue this other offer that has been made here tonight. It will certainly make our lives somewhat simpler. We're dealing with one agency for our entire town. If not, I will say the Rosendale supervisor said that she might be willing to give money directly to the Marbletown town board to then finance the district. I don't know if that's legal or not legal. I would just repeating.
Part of what the state is looking
Yeah.
into.
So there's a lot more questions than answered. This has been an ongoing 1.5-year discussion. We've tried to work through the problem. And it doesn't fall on deaf ears that the county taking it over. It was more the county taking over the administration and management of it as opposed to several different contracts. So it was never meant to say that that Cohasset Accord would get phased out. I know the county is trying to put together a committee or commission to study this. They did talk about it at length at the Supervisors Association meeting. But many towns are satisfied with what they have, although they are indeed pricey. But many towns are satisfied with the current service because many towns are only dealing with one agency, or they're contracting directly with Mobile Life, which is always an option. But so I think we've gotten a little further ahead with some answers, but we still have a lot more unknowns. But I guess, I don't know if we need a resolution to at least pursue what was presented tonight. Yeah, and if you can carry back the message, thank you guys for moving that direction to the partial paid, because sadly, it's the way it is these days. It's the amount of training required and in comparison, you could probably speak to it better than I could. Even 10 years ago, the amount of training required to the amount of training now is night and day difference. And to get people to volunteer and then do all those hundreds of hours of training to be able to volunteer is just not, people don't have the time to do it anymore. And we're lucky we've had the people that have done it for so many years. So
Charles, I have a question. Glenn Pomerantz presented to us a few months back, and I'm wondering, did you recently come up with the number that you would split with Warsing? Because
So
that
the-
number wasn't there in the last presentation.
So the split, I think, is a political question, and we would defer to the politicians for that. We have provided historical data on our call volume, which is approximately 75% town of Rochester, 25% Warsing. I've seen other towns split it by number of parcels or households. We're just here for the patients, and I think we would welcome your input and the cooperation of the other town on how to define that.
Thank you.
the difference there too, Chris, is that number is a recent, because of their going to and you're doing it 3 days a week to pay, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that what I remember reading?
Oh, the partial pay model.
Yeah, and that is a very recent change. They're doing that during the day. From what I remember reading in Robin's email was, I think 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., 3 days a week.
So the immediate stopgap that we're able to self-fund for a bit of a time is Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday from 6 a.m. To 6 p.m.
Oh, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay. So 36 hours a day are being, and they're funding it out of their money right now. But come January, so an option, and this is definitely something that falls under the ARPA ability. I know we talked a lot about broadband, and we're going to get into that discussion here in a minute. I know we're chipping away at it. We could, there's a number of things we could do, but one way to solve it is we've already budgeted a certain amount in our budget for 2022. We could augment that number with ARPA money to get us through 2022. We can work with Mary Lou to move forward to a taxing an independent ambulance district for next year. If we have only one agency to deal with, obviously it's much simpler than if you have two.
Let me ask you a question, Mike. I've read this letter from the Marbletown supervisor probably 30 times. We're being shaken down for $5,000 that they're going to stop serving our residents. When is that? What's their deadline?
We have a contract with them through the end of December, excuse me, with Marbletown First State. So this is for the 2022.
So what they're saying is if we don't cough up $5,000, they're going to stop.
We have
taking-
put 5,000. No, they're saying 5,000 is not enough.
Right.
We already did that.
Yeah. So I guess my question is between now and the end of the year, and again, if you don't have the answer, it's not the appropriate time to ask. Between now and the end of the year, would KFAS be able to service that area out in that Marbletown is currently serving?
KFAS is willing to do that. I think we are dispatched from the county, and there may have to be some other things in place, particularly the way that the service areas are defined. So I don't think that can be immediately done, but we are moving toward that.
Just like you saying, the most important thing is the patients. My big concern is that we end up with a gap in coverage out there.
Well, I'm going to follow up tomorrow with the county EMS coordinator and ask him that specific question and say, what are the next steps and how do we get this?
Gotcha.
If they're willing to cover, then we can thank Marbletown First Aid for what they have done in the past. It can be their choice of whether they cover under mutual aid. One of their, as you remember, looking back at their calls, that
Yeah, it's
Marbletown First Aid was probably doing an average of calls a year into our town. There were a number of mutual aid calls that were coming when KFAS wasn't able to provide, but now KFAS is going to have coverage where they didn't have coverage before, so that mutual aid will probably cease to exist. And quite frankly, every fire district, every ambulance district does mutual aid if they choose to other districts. And like the Accord Fire District, when they do mutual aid down to Cohasset, they don't suddenly charge the town of Warsing for mutual aid.
Yeah.
It's just, it comes with the territory. So that's the part that has kind of really frustrated me, because Marbletown keeps wanting to quote mutual aid numbers. And the reality is they're asking for a lot of money for 12 calls a year.
Yeah.
And yes, it's 12 calls a year, but if you average it out per call, then we should be giving Cohasset and Accord a heck of a lot more money.
Yeah.
So my understanding of this is it's only talking about starting January 1st.
Correct.
So everything's the same until
January
then.
1st.
So we
my
have, we
understanding.
don't have a lot of time, but we have a
Right.
little bit of time to figure out what would need to be done in order to have Cohasset
Mhm.
First Aid cover this area.
Mary Lou, can and I know I heard you guys talking about it, but can they legally just abandon their district?
That's what she's trying to find out.
That's what this-
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
what they're asking the
again,
state.
it sounds bizarre to me.
Because
And,
That's what they're
It's
asking the state.
entitled that they have a certificate of authority
Yeah.
for that area. It does, but we don't know if a certificate of authority means they must cover.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to find out from the
And
state.
the other thing I don't understand from this is it's coming from the supervisor of the town of Marbletown, but it's not coming from the Marbletown First Aid. So like, do they have that same sentiment?
Well, what he's saying is we now have formed an ambulance district. And it's the entire town of Marbletown. So we're paying for this entire operation. Therefore, we're in our contract, we're saying they can't go into other towns.
Right.
So he's basically saying that
He's speaking on behalf of his town board.
he is now Marbletown.
Well, they're a district, yeah. that's
Okay.
Well, they have a contract with Marbletown First
Right.
Aid. It's not the same as a fire district. They have an improvement district.
Yeah, there's all,
That covers that
so many
area.
different categories.
Yeah.
for
They have an improvement district to cover that area, but they can say they're now taxing their residents, and they're now saying you can't spend Marbletown taxpayer money to service Rochester residents. So that's why the letter is the way it is. The question is, that district was assigned my first question is, how did that district get formed in the first place? I've heard historically, it was done because of proximity to the Marbletown First Aid base being closer than Cohasset and Accord. So it was deemed, and it's a direct route off of Burn Road.
Right.
So it was deemed, it was for response time. They still have to agree to that being their district, but I don't know that they can just say arbitrarily, we're not going to cover that district. I think they could file paperwork to say, we no longer want that to be in our district. And these are all just questions that I've asked, and there's no clear answers.
But this
to
could,
them.
but the one way to look at it is it could be an opportunity for us to.
Correct. It could be a way, and this is an ongoing issue with many districts where things span. Town lines are kind of arbitrary, and you have the issues of school districts and water districts and things crossing lines, and it's who administers them and who pays for them and how it's handled. And ambulance has, the guy that spoke basically said modern first aid and goes back to the days of the Romans. And we were still until the 40s, I believe, he said, doing it the same way we've always done it. And it's only recently that it's changed. The gentleman who spoke is a professional EMT, and he is the EMS coordinator, I believe is his title. He's very detailed in his history of how we got to where we got to. And it hasn't, the state laws, and this is why I rally against the state laws, is they haven't kept up with allowing EMS to do the same thing fire districts can. It's just simply not talked about. It says a town board can contract for ambulance service. Doesn't say you must, doesn't say, it just says you may. And there's no, when it's crossing lines like ours is, there's no clarification of how it's done. So we're, Marbletown did what they did, and I understand why they did what they did, because Marbletown First Aid covers their entire town. Rosendale is in a unique, similar situation to us. Marbletown covers 400 homes in Rosendale. And the Rosendale supervisor and I have similar questions about, just like Marbletown doesn't want to pay for Rochester residents, well, we don't want to pay for Marbletown residents. So it's trying to figure out the proportion of that budget, and do we have a member on that commission? There's so many unanswered questions. And that's why we're both reluctant to just say, yes, this is the answer. It's not that we don't want to do it, but we have to ask these questions.
Come January 1st, if I live in the berm and I have a heart attack, is somebody coming to get me?
We hope so. And I don't mean to be so.
No,
callous about it,
I'm just saying
because
that if.
we hope to have an answer before then of some, and maybe this is the answer. If we're able to move that district to Cohasset and Accord First Aid, and even if we have it moving in that right direction, if we're able to get it done by January 1, then yes, we're covered.
Depends on which firm.
Yeah,
Also
I
true.
still question whether this is actually legal or not, and I don't think that. And I can't picture that the EMTs from Marbletown just would say, we're not going to respond.
Yeah.
They are staffed 24/7. So.
Thank you.
Well, also I think it's like, if you're willing to create a taxing district, that takes more than just a couple months to do.
Oh, absolutely. And we can't for the 2022 budget anymore. It's timeframe is come and gone. You have to go through a whole possibility of a permissive referendum process.
Right.
We have to adopt the resolution. We then have to do an opportunity for permissive referendum. If there is a referendum, we have to schedule a vote. Marbletown didn't have a vote. There was nobody called for the vote.
I think it's a weird letter myself.
Yeah.
But I understand. I think I would like us to
And the reason
prioritize
we
this.
didn't move
so
forward
that-
with it because there were too many questions about how we do it with two different groups. Did we become part of Marbletown's referendum, or did we make one area, that's one ambulance district, and the other, that's really the answer if we have two coverage areas. And then we share with Wawarsing. So are we going to then do the same thing to Wawarsing that Marbletown's doing to us? And there's a lot of unanswered. And it just keeps, it's a domino effect. It just keeps steamrolling down. And I understand why Marbletown did what they did.
I think it's a priority, and
Absolutely, it has been.
I do not want us to see any gaps in coverage, and I am making myself available if there's anything I can do to help.
Well,
so
at
that
the
we
very least, what we could do is fund both, if we had to, we could fund both agencies. There's nothing that says the taxpayers of that area have to be the ones paying it. Now, right now, we've put it into our budget, which means the Marbletown coverage area is paying for, those taxpayers are paying for both, and so are the Cohasset people, they're paying for both. We could use some of the ARPA money to just say, you saying you need this much money, we're gonna give you this much money out of the ARPA money. here you go, let's sign a contract. It's not in our budget. It's
That'll
not
be
being
good for
paid
2
for by.
years, then you still, then we have.
And we
to-
can solve that for a year, and we can then by next year move forward to an independent taxing district. We can explore, and we could decide that on December 31st if we had to. I'm just saying we don't want to, but if we had to, we could convene a meeting and agree to pay that to the 2 agencies on December 31st,
Gotcha.
and we would have coverage.
So-
So the short answer to your question is we will make sure there's coverage somehow.
The only other question I have is if the 5,000 is not enough, how much is enough?
Well, that's the thing. They can't tell me what they said the average taxpayer in Marbletown is paying $95 a household, but
There's 100 parcels over there.
and they're all different. They're all different.
$100,000.
Well, they're all different assessments. So, and then there's also, I've never had it, they keep saying 100 homes. So there's a lot of parcels there that aren't homes, and how many parcels is it really? And some of that is Minnewaska and some of that is state land. Now, I know if there's a call, they're gonna be the ones called out, but, or what if there's an auto accident there? That's just somebody driving through town.
That's
It's
true,
not,
too.
so I've never had a clear answer of, and you can't really, the boundary line maps don't match up with parcel maps, so it's even harder to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I have talked with our assessor, and he said, as far as he can tell, it's not a digital map, the EMS. It literally is a physical map, but there's a line drawn there.
Yeah.
And trying to, they're outdated.
Mhm.
So hopefully we can resolve it all though.
I'll second Aaron. If you need anything
Yep.
from me, anything at all, please let me
Oh,
know.
believe me, there's been an awful lot of time spent on this
I'm sure.
every week, every month. So,
Gotcha.
and I will just I feel the need to say this. It's things like this is why this is not a part-time job.
Yeah.
So
And did they each submit budgets to us?
they
did.
Marbletown First Aid submitted a budget. Accord submitted a budget and also a 5-year plan, and they also showed us, they submitted 4 different documents. They were lengthy, so I did not print them out. I forwarded the emails to all of you. They are Excel sheets that are more easily viewed on a computer screen than in a printout. I ask each of you to look at them. And I appreciate you coming very much tonight and sharing information with us. It is very, very helpful. So thank you. And please thank Robin and the board for providing that information. I know that was a lot of work for you guys to come up with it.
It's our pleasure. I want to thank all the board members for their help with this.
Yeah, we want to respect what you guys have done over the years, and I really, I think moving to that partial paid model, and I love the idea of a fly car, and maybe you guys could estimate the cost of a fly car to us, and that would be helpful too, to know that, perhaps we could find something on the state bid that we can get a reasonably priced vehicle. Could we purchase a vehicle? And I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head now.
I would have to look and see if
Okay.
you have
It
to
would have
have.
to be titled to the squad. or
Right, I was gonna say, you might have to have a district.
We might have to, we might have to
something
actually
to do
form the
that.
district before we could do that, but.
Because I think we can purchase, but I think that there's.
Okay.
There may be limitations on.
Okay, but you guys can piggyback off the state bids like we can, so you could, I believe. As an EMS agency, I would believe that you could purchase off the state bid as well, just as easily as we could. I don't know
Every
for
squad
sure.
in the state wants what we want, so.
Yeah,
it's-
so. Okay, rolling into the ARPA. Over the 2 years, we are getting $732,494. We have so far committed $78,555.29. That was the cost of the playground and the installation. Those, at this point, those are the only things we have committed to. That leaves us approximately 600 and, I'm doing the math quick in my head here. 654,000 roughly.
Yep.
Aaron has secured from Fish the cost of the camera, the screen, the mic and speaker, and then the wall-mounted computer that would be used to control those. I did present to you both of those quotes. It is a total of $2349.89, so roughly $2350. We had talked about taking it out of the ARPA money. We could potentially take it out of our current budget right now. We could always reimburse ourselves for it later if we wanted to. I'm not sure if we designate it as ARPA, if we can backtrack from it, but I think we can go the other way. If we pay for it now out of town funding, the money is not specifically budgeted for it. There is money in certain lines that I can move. We are currently under budget at this point. We could make a resolution to pay it out of fund balance, and then if I'm able to find the money, we can always reimburse fund balance. So
Do it that way.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
instead of doing, if we choose to later, we can, but I'm thinking with this possibility of the EMS, I'd like to kind of keep whatever we can there right now. If we were to do that,
Yeah, I'd take off the last
yeah,
bit and say,
you just take off everything from this purchase shall
Yeah.
utilize the American Rescue Fund
Right.
grant funds, and this purchase shall be paid out of general fund balance.
Yep.
Because what happens is if we pay it out of fund balance now, what we'll do is we'll increase our budget, but at the end of the year, if there's money left over, it goes back into fund balance. So it's essentially just reimburses.
And we
itself.
do the same thing with the playground if we.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but we already did designate the money for the playground.
Right.
By resolution.
But if we need to, we can.
Yeah,
Right,
I don't know, once we did a resolution, I guess we haven't reported anything to the state yet. So we could always.
Mary Lou, that sounds right to you?
I would have to look and see what the.
Okay.
But if we do the resolution
But I
right
mean,
now to
this-
pay for it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, you
So,
can reimburse,
yeah.
right. Okay.
but I don't know if you can.
So,
reimburse.
So then-
why don't you make that
Yeah.
resolution and we'll do that right now.
Okay, so then I'd like to make a motion that the town board authorizes the supervisor to purchase audio visual equipment as presented through Fish Solutions, the town's IT consultant, in the amount of $2,349.89 for a video screen, microphones, a video camera, and a mini PC. The installation of such equipment shall be provided by Fish Solutions as part of our contract. This shall be paid out of general fund balance. I made the motion.
Second.
Yeah, sorry, I was just writing the language. Okay, motion and second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay.
I just wanted to mention, I like the way of funding it like this because we haven't opened up the ARPA conversation to the public. And I
Right.
think the primary intention is to help people and businesses. And so tomorrow morning, I'm taking the Kingston survey of how to get feedback from citizens. So I'm gonna make a new Google form based on their questions to share with you all.
Okay.
And Mike, will you approve these quotes ASAP?
Yes, tomorrow, they're both pending me signing them. I was waiting for this
Great.
resolution. They will be signed tomorrow morning and be transmitted back to Fish electronically.
Great.
And,
I enjoy being the de facto camera person, but I'm ready to be relieved of that as soon as possible.
So the premium pay, I just want to report back to you. Tim and I have started digging through this, and what we've discovered is it's a lot. It's not as simple as we thought. We did a report of hours of worked. The problem is our software system, like the first week of the year is partial one year and partial the next year. So for this year, we had people who worked a few days in 2020 and a few days in 2021. There's no way to put two rates of pay in somebody's paychecks. So the workaround that has been done ever since we've had this software system is to put number one, calculate what the total amount we owe the person is using a calculator, and they get one rate of pay at, just say it was $512. They get one rate of pay. The problem is when you count hours, that counts as 1 hour. So as I was doing this, I got to January and was like, why are everybody's hours suddenly dropping? Kim ran this report for me. And then the light bulb went off and I went, oh, and I went back to the timesheets and sure enough. Plus, Mary Lou has already said we can only pay this for when people are present. So we have to go through every week's timesheets, pull out vacation, sick time, personal time. It's doable, but it's going to take time. What I did discover, though, is from March till December, it was approximately 38,000 hours. And I'm assuming from January to September, it's going to be very similar. So we're looking at a maximum of 76,000 hours. That will only go down from there. Obviously, it won't go up. So my thought process is that we pay every employee who worked during those times $1 an hour premium pay for whenever they were physically present. That will equate to some employees of about a $3,000 payment. To other employees, will be $1,500. To other employees who only worked bits and pieces of that, like our constables, it's anywhere from $30 or $40 to $400 or $500. But I think $1 an hour, it recognizes what they did. And we can hopefully get this. If I didn't want to start diving into it until I had a feedback from you guys, but now I have some of the numbers. We could potentially get this done in December. It would be a nice little end of the year before Christmas payment to people. What I propose is that we split it in 2 checks. We pay one for 2020 and one for 2021. So the people that are getting 3,000 roughly won't get it all in one check, because then it does have to be taxable. We do have to tax it.
They get taxed like that's their paycheck every week. and
Yeah,
then they won't get
so
back
I would
until
propose that we
tax time.
split them over 2 separate checks, one for each year, but that's my thought process. We could go higher than $1 an hour. I'm just saying $1 an hour would be about $75,000 of the ARPA money. We could certainly, I'm open to whatever discussion people think. But I think we've heard from Jeff, from Kate, we know from the board, we know what these employees did and went through. And they continue to show up and do their job. And
It's a good thought process.
you have any feedback on it, Kate? Please feel free to chime in.
No.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. If you guys think it should be more, we could go higher, but remember, once we spend it, there's no going back.
There wasn't, I don't have it in front of me. There wasn't a cap on what you could.
There is.
Oh, okay.
maximum of $13 per hour.
Oh, that was the cap. I thought there might have been a dollar
And you
value. cap.
also-
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And no more than there's something
5,000.
based on
Go,
the
Carl.
average salary of a certain, it's
Yeah.
approximately, for Ulster County, it's approximately 25,000.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're not
Yeah.
talking anywhere near that number.
Do we have any idea what other towns are doing?
Woodstock did a general percentage of their salary. They did it very quickly. They did not pull out any, they just looked at how much money they earned during that time frame. They also paid a percentage to the town clerk and the highway superintendent. Mary Lou's still finding out if we can or can't. I know other states, some other states have done that, but New York State is who is administering our money. So even though it's federal money, we still have to answer back to New York State. And I'm not saying that the hours spent by the highway superintendent and the town clerk were not the same hours that everybody else was, but if the state says we can't do it, then we can't do it.
That's what I said in my report, that I'm waiting to hear from the comptroller.
And they have not, they don't have an answer for it. The Association of Towns has come out and said, you can't change a salary during somebody's term, so they may view it as a change in salary. The question is that really a change in salary? Because it's premium pay. And I'll be honest, I'm betting there'll be a lawsuit over it if they actually do come out and say you can't. I'm sure somebody in some town will sue.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just erring on the side of caution to, because if we do fund something that they come back and say, no, you can't, then we're on the hook for the money.
Yeah.
So, but that's where that stands. I continue to look into broadband. The county comptroller reached out to me the other day. She is trying to, there is apparently some information that existed from 8 or 10 years ago, which the county may or may not still have available to them, that showed mapping that was done with literally boots on the ground. And she's trying to locate if that information still exists. Larry DeWitt has left, but I know Larry was very involved. And Lynn Archer back in the days, and Carl, where our highway department went out and in our town literally mapped the roads for us, and we have that information. But it conflicts with what Spectrum is telling us. And so I tend to believe ours over Spectrum. Spectrum also, their paperwork says that where they've added new customers, they're calling that improvements, but I use my house as an example. I will change from DirecTV to Spectrum because I got an HD TV and DirecTV said you don't have line of sight anymore. Spectrum included me as a build out. It was already on my road. All they did was connected it to my house. So there was no build out for me. I mean, that's just one example. So there are, I'm sure if you look through their list, there are many people that they're saying were a build out that were really just a connection, a new customer. And they're not very upfront about giving that information out. The county is trying to pursue wireless broadband towers. They're looking into it. I don't know how well that will work in the areas that are unserved in the town of Rochester, because the areas that are unserved are geographically challenged because of valleys and hills and mountains. And so it's a possibility, but I don't know. So the big answer is we continue to do the dance with Spectrum, and they sort of continue to refuse to give information, and they fall back on it's additional service. Our franchise agreement is for cable TV, not broadband. And when it's convenient for them to spout that, they do.
Gotcha.
So that's where we stand. But I just wanted to let you know, we have essentially $645,000 left to spend over the next 2 years. How we dole it out, kind of up to us. So.
Right.
But we could still fund the premium pay. We could still fund EMS for a year and have a very nice chunk of money for broadband stuff. So.
Makes sense.
Last thing is contract for payroll services. I gave you each a packet. No, I did not. I'm sorry. I have them here. These are the 3 quotes that were received.
This is not a typo. This is good sales language. Like that.
So they're all, what I did is I printed out the cover letter, which is the separate letter, and then the packet is stapled together. So there are 3 separate quotes here from 3 different companies. The 2 were the 2 that we got the original quotes from. I went back and asked them to do a new quote. I also, through Michael Richardson, found this other company who is based out of Rockland County, who one of his clients is working with and we're very happy with. And they are located in Bardonia, which is in Rockland County. The other 2 are national companies who do have local regional offices. We don't need to make a decision on this tonight. I just wanted to present it to you guys. I would like us to do a decision on this one way or the other by the end of this month, though, to give them time. I will tell you the one, the first, the big packet, they now have a new, they're still able to offer us what they offered us last time, which is 5 free months of service, which would be 3 months in year 1 and 2 months in year 2. They also are offering a setup fees waived entirely. And this is a new bonus that he told me they just rolled out, is a lifetime price lock, that whatever price we get now will be locked in for life. It will never increase and remain our contract as long as we use that. Oh, now their their expiration date, which I did miss, is tomorrow.
What they said, oh,
So the other company is now able to waive the setup fee that they were not able to waive before. And they'll be receiving the first month of payroll free. And then the third company I think is not offering any of those statements. They are a smaller company. I don't believe that they are offering any. There is a one-time setup fee of $150, an onboarding setup fee of $500.
so Mike, does it make sense? I mean, at this point, unfortunately with this one expiring, but we'd have to sit down and run the numbers for 3 years on, because if this one's got discounts in years 1 and 2, we really need to see what year number 3 looks like, and then, average amount.
Yeah,
compare them to the other two.
their expiration date is probably for, again, he said that these features have expiration dates, but oftentimes they come back. And because they're a national company, they're at the mercy of whatever the national parent company is offering at that moment. But I'm not gonna rush it because of that. I think if we contacted them later in November, so I'd ask that we could potentially, we did not advertise, we did not designate that meeting on the 17th just as a budget meeting. We just said that it was
A special meeting.
special meeting, so we could, if the board could review these and be prepared to talk about it at that meeting.
Yeah.
Whether we do it or not.
I feel most comfortable doing this after that because we would adopt the budget, which includes this, and then do this after we do that.
Except if we're not gonna do the payroll company, then we can remove that line item out of the budget.
Right,
If we decide we're not gonna do payroll at all. So,
right.
Because I can't remember what we budgeted, but it wasn't,
8,000.
8,000.
yeah, it's not insignificant. If these things come back 20,000, then we're.
well, I don't know, they're not. I
No, I
mean,
know.
This one's.
yeah, the yearly fees on all these is under 8,000.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah,
It's gonna take a
I,
little time to break them down.
absolutely, but if we can be prepared to talk about it that night, to say what we want to do. I will say, our accounting firm says that QuickBooks does not do payroll well. I'm told it can do payroll, but they say it is. And this current software we're using is simply, we can't get, it's a mom and pop operation. We've used it for a long time. It's adequate, but there's a lot of things that it doesn't do very well. And I also think that by going to QuickBooks, which is what our accounting firm uses, our costs on our AUD will be less because they spend a lot of time taking our information and making it fit for them. And I think our cost to them is going to be reduced.
Yeah.
3,000 or 4,000 each time minimum, maybe more. So if you figure if we're paying 6,000 for a payroll company and 2,000 or 3,000 for software, even still.
Still make it up in a couple.
And the nice thing is, we're gonna move more into, there'll be apps that our employees can have. They can access their payroll information, their paid time off will be kept up to date. Right now, we calculate it pen and paper at the end of every month. We then have to generate, they either have to call us and ask us, or Tim has started generating a statement that he then gives out at the beginning of the month, but that all takes time.
Yeah.
So.
And I just want to say that we expect one employee to do payroll. And we've been so fortunate to never have had this employee have an accident or something catastrophic come up in their life, because that is really only one person knows how to do payroll. And whether we go with a company or we, have a substitute do payroll, it's really hard to do that. I did try to follow Shirley with it once or twice, but if you don't do it on a regular basis and you start screwing up people's paychecks, you have a nightmare in your hands. And Shirley had always took her vacations based around certain days of the week, knowing that payroll had to be done Mondays and Tuesdays, and that's a lot to ask of a single employee. And so I really do think this is something I really think the board should consider.
Somebody still has to fill out the form to send to the payroll
Right.
company, but I could do that. It's a matter of taking our data, entering it into their form and sending it to them. I've asked him to teach me some of the payroll, but it is very time consuming, and the laws change constantly. They just changed the tax withholding, what's it, the W4? No, W2 is what you get at the end of the
Okay,
year.
W4, yeah, they just changed
W4.
it, yeah.
They just changed it, and our software hasn't caught up with the change. So we got a couple new employees and they had to fill out the new form, and Tim was on the phone for hours trying to get it all straightened out to make sure that New York State was going to be happy and the right amount was being deducted. And it's just little simple changes like that a payroll company, that's what they do for a living. And I know there's a cost involved, but I think in the long run, it's more efficient and it's better for our employees. And the cost, I think at the end of the day, we're going to find out it's going to cost us $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a year with the savings that we're going to save. So I think it's moving into the new decade. I hate to say it like that, but it's, I know we're the new century even, because And I polled a lot of other towns. Some use payroll companies, some still do it in-house.
A lot of them that do it in-house have more than one employee.
Yeah, a lot of them, they
Yeah.
have a separate payroll
Right.
department, or they have a separate bookkeeper. We have one person that wears 4 hats. That's personnel, HR, bookkeeping, and secretary, and purchasing.
Yeah.
Secretary, the supervisor, and purchasing. That's 5 things. And many towns have 3 people doing those jobs or more.
Yeah.
Worsing had a whole payroll department, I mean, a whole bookkeeping department. I think we have to do it, but I think it's a matter of making sure we get the right one. And I think all 3 have their pros and their cons. So don't just use dollar, but look through it and see what you think, and let's just try to talk about it and make a decision, though.
I have one more thing. I hope it only takes 30 seconds. From the public comment today, Manuela has come to every single one of our board meetings
Mhm.
since August
Mhm.
with this issue with the fire safety inspection fee. Is there anything we can do?
I have talked to the code enforcement office about it. They continue to say they're looking into it. I'm gonna try again to get some more definitive
Do you
answers.
want me to talk to him?
Sure.
I think, I really,
Yeah,
I feel like this has gone on way too long.
I agree. And from the
mean-
first time she brought this
Yeah.
to me, I went and said, what do we gotta do? And so, but part of the fee, there was a fee change. And so the fee change is one thing, but
Right.
you know, I don't even know that they are running an antique store anymore. The sign is now gone. Perhaps they should have a different designation, but
Okay.
so.
Well, I could even, I mean, we, as individual board members, I guess, could send an email and ask, so.
I've followed up with it. I've asked the question and I've asked them to look into resolving it, but you know, I try, it's partially difficult when you're in 2 different buildings. It's a matter of connection. You know, if I have a question to Kate, I can walk
But
down the
it's,
hall.
my understanding is it's their,
Yeah,
it's
and-
their interpretation,
Right.
but there's also been a change in that, it sounds like, with new staff.
I'll talk to him.
But
Okay, if you can follow up with them. I
Thank you, Mary
appreciate it.
Lou.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
yeah. It's not that it's been ignored, though. It's been. One other quick thing, I will follow up with them on this, have them follow up on the hidden forest to make sure.
Oh,
that
yes, I was
that
thinking about that today.
So that was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we'll follow up and make sure that it was done.
Thanks.
I did receive one call from one resident who was very disappointed that we didn't follow through with the hearing. But
Right.
That was one person.
Yeah.
So,
I think our visual inspection, you know, was well founded. It was a good exercise. And like I said, you know, consensus between building department and owner, you know, I think we're, you know, I'm, you know, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I was very pleased with the overall outcome out
Oh,
there.
so was I. And
Yeah.
Many of the things had been resolved after we started writing these letters and scheduling hearings.
Well, I'll say if you do buy a trailer park in the woods, you're gonna have to cut trees. So.
I have received in communications. I did not put these on the agenda because I wasn't prepared to discuss them yet tonight, but there are 2 requests. There is one for a request for a zoning permit reclassification. However, I believe the parcel ID, there's 2 parcels side by side, and I believe they wrote the wrong parcel number on, because there's a larger parcel and a smaller parcel. This is the request for application that was presented.
I think the one that-
This, I think, was this emailed to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so. What, if you look at the map, you'll see that little tiny strip. The big one is the school district, which is the R5 zone. That little tiny strip is a 2-acre property that has a house on it. The piece next to it, the bigger piece that is the rest of the sort of long rectangle, is in AR3. The other one is in the R5.
Got
They
it.
both have houses on them. They are owned by same family members. How this came up is the people who have the little strip wanted to put a pool on their property. The setback for an R5 is 75 feet from the boundary line.
There you go.
Looking at this map, it's pretty clear that what happened was when the R5 zone was set, that little tiny strip was accidentally included in the R5.
Got
It's a 2-acre parcel. There's
Yeah.
no reason it would have been made a 5-acre zoning. But I want to get the corrected application before we even consider
Right.
scheduling anything. So I will work with code enforcement. This just came, even though it's dated 6/1, it just came to us.
Yeah, we've just
last
got it.
week. So I will get them to correct the application to the right date. But I think this is a case of a rezone that is clearly an error that was made in the zoning when it was done because of its proximity to the other one. And yeah, I mean, having a 2-acre parcel zone, 5-acre.
Yeah. But reading it, I was like, but now it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Very difficult to put that pool in the R5.
Yeah.
And when we were doing the zoning map on the computer screen, sure that parcel was grabbed with
Right, by
the
mistake.
school by mistake, and it got in there and nobody ever picked it up, and it continued to be. So that's that one. The other is we have received an EEO request for the granary project that we have talked about. There is a full packet made up for each of us. I have not looked at it yet at all. They did pay the $300 fee, which is the town board portion. 2 town board member packets. Town board member packet. Town board member packet. As I said, I have not looked at it yet. This is how it came to me yesterday or Monday or yesterday. I don't remember. But anyway. Yeah, yesterday.
Get that on the
Okay,
map.
so
That's kinda cool.
take a look. I'd like us to, plan on having a discussion about it to see. And let's see where it goes. So I just wanted to present that to you guys tonight. And that's all I have.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Yeah, so we're gonna adjourn tonight in memory. Roger Rasco. Roger is the, or sadly was, the head of the Ulster County Republican Committee and passed very unexpectedly on Friday, I believe. Christopher Howe, who was a sheriff's deputy, who passed since our last meeting. George Winters Jr., Longing Starch, Anne Marie Sagan, and we continue to remember all that are suffering from COVID. So I
And
guess,
George Winters Jr. and I grew up 2 houses away from each other.
Yeah.
so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
That's a good idea.
We put everything away. All the tools and stuff.
You're right, guys. Yeah. Long one.
Um,